All right, good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order, the meeting of the Carver Select Board for Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. This meeting is being recorded by Area 58 Community Access Media Channel 9 and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the front page on our website for a listing and application. If we could all stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Ryan, if you could read our community prayer.
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility, and especially we lift up prayers for all the citizens of our community that we've been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek, and keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All right, the first item on our agenda this evening, as always, is citizen participation. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? Mr. Belvin?
Robert Belvin, 26 Gate Street. Sorry for my appearance. I just got out of babysitting duties. Okay. First order of business is it's time for new legal counsel. $110,000 overspending on the legal budget is absurd since we're already giving them 100 plus. So y'all need to do something. I brought this up as a select board member too, that we need to get rid of town council and find someone else. It's about time we do that. And number one. Number two, all right, the MBTA, listen, it's already been fought through a number of different court cases already and it's got thrown out. Okay, no sense spending the legal budget to try to fight it again. All right, just make the area up in North Carver, Roby's property across the street at Shaw's, all right, make it, there you go, there's your property, okay, we set up a district. Simple, all right, we save legal budget that way. Finally, had a meeting yesterday, and I lost my temper. I'm not ashamed of it, I'm not upset at it, okay, I'm frustrated. Poor communication by our town administrator. I asked him to send me an email, all right, that the town's gonna pay $114,000 for the meter pit. Because it's not in our budget. I tried to talk about it at a town meeting, got shut down by the moderator, okay? Wasn't included in this other budget because you guys cut us down too, from what we asked for, down to $650,000, so it's not in our budget. You gotta come up with that money. I sent an email to Middleborough today, telling them we're not paying it, okay? Told them exactly what happened. I asked for an email from the from our town administrator, all right, just to say that the town's gonna pay for it, and I would have signed it. That's all I asked for. He didn't send me an email that said, yes, we will give you a letter saying we're gonna pay for it or not. I only had verbal, and I won't take verbal if I'm gonna overspend my budget, calling deficit spending. Okay, I'm not a financial wizard, but guess what? I know if we only have $25,000 in our budget for the North Carver Water District, I'm not gonna sign for $114,000, not knowing where that money's coming from. Okay, so I'm sorry. A simple email would have said, all right, Mr. Belbin, yeah, I can't give you a place of where it's gonna come from or that we're gonna pay it. Or we are gonna pay it. So therefore we didn't pay it. Hopefully Middleborough will see through and say, all right, we'll give you until the next town meeting that you appropriate that money. Because at any time they can say 30 days, we're gonna shut your water off for all those residents in North Carver. Thank you very much, okay? All right, I think I spent enough. I'm done. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Belvin. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one else, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is King Richard's Fair. It's a broad agenda item, which includes board discussions of the traffic plan, conditions for issuing the liquor and entertainment licenses. So I'll invite the representatives of the fair to come up, and it looks like you may have to grab a couple of other chairs because we have a few more people than we have chairs for there. I apologize. Thank you all for coming in again. And if you could just take the microphone and go around and introduce yourself for the folks at home, we'd appreciate it.
Hi there, Ryan Roy, Vice President of Production for King Richard's Fair in Meadville.
Aimee Sedley, producer and general manager, King Richard's Fair and Edaville.
Jesse Schwartz, General Manager of Interstate Parking and Regional Director for Large-Scale Events.
Paul Kavanaugh, attorney for King Richard's Fair.
Great, thank you. And I see our police chief, Chief Dufely, in the audience. Chief, would you mind coming up and just joining us in case there's some question that we may need an answer to? All right. Chief Ryan? Right. Chief Weston, thank you for all for coming. We appreciate it. And I guess the first thing before we start, I just want to say thank you to everybody here, because I know there's a lot of work that went into these conditions and traffic plans, and I appreciate all your work. I know the entire town does, so thank you. We also have our town council here, Attorney Greg Corbo. Mr. Corbo, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
So I think the goal here is to have a good, robust discussion and be able to get through these and hopefully come to an agreement. So we have an amended order of conditions. This is the one I have. There's some changes in red and some changes in blue. Does everyone have a copy of this? Does anyone not have a copy of this? Okay.
Mr. Chair, maybe I can explain sort of what this document is for everyone.
Absolutely, Mr. Corbo was going to, I just wanted to make sure everyone had a copy so that we all be literally on the same page, so.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. My name is Greg Corbo, Town Council for the town of Carver. So members of the board and chiefs, you have a copy of a proposed entertainment license with, I think it's 19 conditions for the operation of the fair. And we last talked about this on June 17th, and you were presented with a document with proposed conditions at that time. Since then, we've had a number of discussions, the chiefs and the town administrator, with representatives of the fair, between myself and their council, and the document that you have in front of you represents the latest draft that is largely agreed upon by town staff and the fair. And so what you'll see, what you have in front of you is the document you had on June 17th. The items in red are items that town staff and the fair have agreed upon to be part of the license. And towards the end, there are a few items in blue that we received today from council that will require further discussion with the chiefs and the board. Mr. Chair, you may want to, go through each of these conditions, or I don't know if you want to start with the traffic plan first, since that's kind of probably the biggest issue here.
I was going to say, why don't we go to the traffic plan first, and then I'll go through and read the conditions, and we can, if any people want to discuss them, we can discuss them. So who would like to present the traffic plan? Chief, would you like to do that, or would you prefer the traffic manager?
I can absolutely do it.
All right, why don't we do it?
All right. So if you want to go to the next slide or next page here, we can go through everything. So we'll go through our on-site layout here. So right now we're proposing to use two gates, Kings Gate 1 and Kings Gate 2. We like to name them so they can be easily identifiable, especially for an emergency situation. We also have the Kings Gate 3 up top here, which should be a dedicated emergency access only. And then on site, we would have our general parking and our participant / general parking as well. We do have a pickup and drop off area built right into the parking lot. And then as long as if there's an additional lot that is secured for off-site parking, we had to bring in the transit of the buses and whatnot through that exact same area. It'll be a built-in corral. Between the participant lot and the general parking lot, we do have the emergency services area. That'll be the central location for all emergency services. Questions with this slide at all?
The only question I have, the general parking area, the smaller general parking lot, next to the participant lot, has that been approved by the planning board?
You want it?
So we're working with the planning board right now to get a soil test that they asked for. Their engineer for the town suggested that, and there's a document that just went through it. So Thursday, they're coming out to take care of that, and based on what the conditions were, is that we will hold that lot until we get the okay from the results of the soil test.
But it hasn't been approved by the planning board yet? At this point, it's not approved by the planning.
Correct, we're waiting for them to get the results, yep.
So if it wasn't approved by the planning board, would you be reducing the amount of tickets
Correct.
you would be selling to accommodate just the other parking lot?
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's fine. Anybody else have anything on that slide? Okay, thank you.
If we can go to the next one, please. Okay. So traffic management here between Route 58 and Tremont and 495. We can go to the next one as well. So as you can see here, it's standard two-lane traffic with the incoming and egress traffic routes along with residential and local traffic. We do intend to use the variable message boards, which would be the same ones used by the Mass DOT. Questions on this slide?
Anyone? No? Good.
Next one, please. This is just a little bit further down here. Again, same exact thing with the ingress and egress traffic. Again, we added another variable message board here. Next slide. Or questions on that one? Just make sure. Assuming not.
Anyone?
All right.
Why don't we just keep moving forward? If someone has a question, they can stop it. They can speak up and we'll just stop it, okay?
Thank you. Here we are between, sorry, if we can go back to the last one. I'm still getting my exact roads here. Route 58 and Rochester and Tremont. So right here, again, variable message boards are key to notify the visitors or local traffic or any residential of what is taking place, where to go. We do add the third lane here, which is dedicated to a through lane as well, and that goes in both directions. This allows for us to keep traffic flowing while dedicating traffic to the event as well. On the intersection of Rochester Road and 58, there will be a police detail there. They're crucial to the traffic management plan and ensuring that we have a dedicated safety services route as well. Next slide. The cone placement on Route 58 South and Rochester Road with 3 lanes of traffic. Go to the next one, please. Basically, if we can zoom in if you guys would like here, but it's just showing that how we're creating the exact 3 lanes. Where we'd start the cones, right down here. Was that 2.5 miles? Sorry, it was 1.5 miles worth of cones going down to the south here. And then if we scroll just up to the top of the slide here, you're good. I should have brought the PowerPoint. Or I have the PowerPoint. We can do that too. But both north and south of Rochester Road, we'll have 3 lanes of dedicated traffic here. And we can go to the next one. So yes, here you'll see the north of Rochester Road. Again, 3 lanes of traffic dedicated, so with the pass through. Next slide, please. Let's zoom out just a little here. There we go. And then we got traffic management here on Rochester Road. So you're going to see here we're going to have 2 lanes of traffic set up. We're going to have a main ingress lane and an egress lane. Ida Ave is dedicated to the back area access for the participants, which will have security on Ida Ave as well, ensuring only pass holders get through. And then again, now we're showing the Rochester and 58 on the right here with the dedicated police officer. And then we're going to have on the left side as well, on Pine and Rochester, a dedicated officer to control traffic flow.
Just had a quick question on
Yes, sir.
on that opening slide, the participant and general parking was one area, and now you said on Ida Ave, That's just is that a different participant?
Same
Parking lot.
exact lot. Participants will go through Ida Ave here, but general parking will still come through the main parking lot,
Okay.
and they'll access it
But
via
it's that
different-
same area?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Will you have will that parking lot be cordoned off in some way, so participants go one way and?
Absolutely. We plan to add safety fencing to delineate the two. So that way we have participants segregated from our general parking, because we don't want general parking going backstage and accessing areas they shouldn't go.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next slide, please. Traffic management on Pine Street. So for Kingsgate 1 here, you're going to see an officer stage right outside to control the traffic. Right there on Pine Street, we do have a dedicated turn lane, which will bring in traffic to Kingsgate 1. And then the middle blue lines here will take us to Kingsgate 2, which we will turn traffic in as well. So we intend to park 2 lanes of traffic coming in at all times to keep the traffic flow moving. At the same time, you're going to see the egress routes. You'll be able to go either way, either direction. And then same with the ingress, if we do get some, is that technically north? I'm sorry. If we do get traffic from the left here, we'll be able to take them in through Kingsgate 2 as well. Right now, we're thinking we only need 1 officer, but if things do get to the point of where we do need 2 officers, there would be an option to add a second officer at the Kingsgate 2. Next slide, please. General parking zones. So right here, I like to use zone numbers. It helps tremendously with our staff and wayfinding if there's ever emergency services that need to know where they're going. So right now, we have a zone 1. Zone 2 would be the participant / general parking. Zone 3, the main lower portion of the general parking. Zone 4 is the middle portion, and Zone 5 is the top. The reason we take zones is because we're parking them in a strategic manner. For example, we will be parking Zone 1 and Zone 2 first, and we're working back, and then Zone 3, and then Zone 4, we will fill it about halfway and then move on to Zone 5, so then we finish Zones 4 and 5 equally, because that way people are walking away from vehicle traffic instead of having to impede pedestrians with vehicles as well. So it's much safer, it's faster, you don't have kids running in between vehicles and whatnot. So we will fill the lots evenly to ensure maximum ingress capacity.
And Mr. Chairman, on this plan, Zone 3, 4, and 5 are existing parking lots, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question.
Oh, yes.
So for pedestrian traffic on this, is there any delineation of where the pedestrian traffic is going to be for coming out of each of the zones to head into the entrances?
Yes, so we intend to put tall flag signs, so we'll have 16-foot flags that'll say, "Follow me to the entrance." So when we park it, everything is going back from the top towards the bottom left corner, and all traffic is naturally, for foot traffic, going to go forward. We can add in, in other scenarios along our main traffic lanes, we have added in a little pedestrian corrals, about 6 feet wide to rope and delineate them. I'm happy to do that too. That's an easy one. Usually we look at that one as an as-need. Most of the traffic with the layout like this, everything's walking away from the vehicle traffic. So typically in our experience, I've done this with the Minnesota Vikings, Wisconsin State Fair, other festivals, we have not needed it. But in Minnesota, yes, we do have a lot of conflicting traffic, so there are times where we've added them in Minnesota.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. No? Next slide, please. Participant ingress and egress plan. So you're going to see here the participants are the red arrows coming in off of Ida Ave. They will come into Zone 2 park, and then when they leave, they'll exit out of Ida Ave as well. Next slide. Pick up and drop off and transit hub ingress and egress plan. Go ahead. So we will create a dedicated coned off drive lane. So all pickup and drop off traffic will be pushed along the perimeter of the lot here and segregated from general parking, any sort of pedestrians, anything like that. The key here is to have free flowing traffic so they can come and go as fast as possible.
I'm sorry, real quick. So on this pick up and drop off, what are all the yellow arrows?
So that's your traffic for your bus. You could be your buses, it could be your normal vehicles coming to pick up and drop off. So they'll be right along the perimeter here. So they're going to come in, and the corral, it'll be a horseshoe for them so they can drop off and exit as well, and then come right down the same path they were on. It'll be wide enough for 2 vehicles or 2 buses, and they'll follow the same unimpeded route in and out of the lot.
So is that corral going to be delineated?
So yeah, it'll be fenced off with safety bike rack fencing.
Well, quick question. So the pickup and drop off, does that go through Kings Gate 1?
Yes, that is correct.
And then it just goes to the,
Yep.
Okay.
So part of I'm a big signage snob. So making sure we know everyone is being communicated a correct message. So pick up and drop off here, no matter the direction you're coming from. So we have to communicate that message. And by doing that with our signage on the road or along Edaville here, or excuse me, Pine Street and the Edaville site, we will have those signs that says pick up, drop off, turn here. Pick up, drop off, next entrance. So.
okay, thank you.
Yes. And again, for the pickup drop-off area, that's if there's an auxiliary lot that we'd ever have buses in there. If not, it's just normal vehicle traffic. Next slide, please. All right. General parking ingress all zones. Go ahead. So you'll see here that we are going to bring in vehicles off of Kings Gate 1, which will be parking Zone 2 first out of there. As Zone 2 fills, we'll work on Zone 3. Kings Gate 2 will park Zone 1 first. And then as that fills, we'll start parking zones 4. And then again, we'll equally fill zones 4 and 5 together. So that way you don't have people walking in between cars and traffic is free flowing.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, so where do people walk?
Do you mind if I get up and show you real quick on the screen? Absolutely. So your vehicles that are coming in here, they're all going to end up parking in this direction, so their vehicles are all facing the site itself. So naturally, as you park your vehicle, you get out and you're going to walk directly towards the entrance here. So everything is going to be free flowing this way because we're parking going back this way. So you're not going to cross traffic with vehicles. And we park the first car and the second car immediately behind you, and it's called a zipper parking style. So it's very fast and efficient. So we're going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 the whole way down here. So that way, by the time you park your car, and before you even get out of your vehicle, we've already parked the car next to you. So you don't have to worry about doors slamming, kids getting hit, anything like that. And by the time you're parked here, we're already down here by the time you're getting out and walking into the site. And then you see our big, tall, 16-foot flag signs. Does that help?
So everyone, what about up in Zone 5? That's quite the walk.
Absolutely. So Zone 5, I'm a little short here, but they're going to do the same thing. We're going to have our follow me flag signs all the way up here, and they're going to walk along here, and they're going to follow those all the way back down to here as well. Yes, it's a little bit of a walk, but again, by the time they're walking to their vehicles, or walking to the site, there's no vehicles and traffic they're competing with, because we're all parking everything behind them.
And what about the cars that are parked behind the 6th or 7th or 8th row?
So the 6th, 7th, so say we're parking back here, right? All these vehicles have already been parked and all those visitors have already entered and they're walking in, right? So the same thing with them. They're parking and they're unimpeded here. They're just walking straight ahead to the follow me to the entrance signs.
But Zone 3, you'll have how many rows of cars? That's a pretty big zone.
Yes, so ideally we'd like to have 8 there. There'll be some areas where it'll go 8 deep and then it'll get a little more narrow here where it goes to 6 to 7. So it all depends on the layout here. I think there's a slide here at the end maybe that'll show how I laid it out here. So essentially if you could visualize, you'd have 1 lane, 2 lanes, and then you'd have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there might be just a couple small ones here.
So I guess my question is, if you're on row 6 and 7, how do you know where to walk?
So again, 60 these tall flag signs. I already have 16 of them in my budget. 16 tall, 16-foot flag signs in budget to put them in here where you can't miss them.
Okay.
So it's a very successful thing. We use them all over the Wisconsin State Fair, Minnesota Vikings training camp facility. I handle all the tailgating for the Minnesota Vikings in the city of Minneapolis. These flag signs are huge. So I'm assuming that's a 12-foot ceiling or pretty close to it, so we're adding 4 feet on top of that.
Okay.
So.
should do it.
Yes, it should in theory. So, and then we've got 100-pound water bases on them, so that way they can handle the wind as well and they're not blowing down, get knocked over.
While you're there,
Yeah.
could you just show it, and maybe if it's covered later on in this plan, please we can wait till then, but how about emergency vehicle access if someone needs to get through the parking lots there?
Absolutely. It's definitely in the slide here, but we have it set up to where they can come in Kingsgate 1, 2, or 3. We're going to dedicate and cone off lanes around here. If they ever need to go directly to zone 1 here, there's going to be a cut through right here, and they would come this way. Same with gate 1 here as well, where they would just come to the outside and follow in to go to zone 2. So they will have full access to the site through all 3 gates.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, just to follow up, Mr. Chair.
And Eda Ave, yeah, they'll have Eda Ave too.
Ms. Hewis, you can just make sure you're speaking to the microphone, just a
I
little
beg your
bit.
pardon. So just to follow up, Mr. Chair, so those points of access for the emergency vehicles, are they laned off somehow? I mean, what if there are people walking down those in front of the cars?
So going from zones 4 and 5, yes, we're going to cone off and separate the emergency access. With zone 3 here, the main drive lane is going to follow along the pickup drop-off lane, which won't have any pedestrian access there. So, but also we have traffic directors on site, which will be controlling any traffic or pedestrians if the situation ever arose. So as soon as we ever get a call from emergency management, hey, we've got an ambulance coming in or a fire truck, that's right away telling our team, hey, we need to take the proper measures. They want to come into King's Gate 1. Perfect. What is our situation for Gate 1? We're sending everything to Gate 2, and we're keeping all traffic away from Zone 3.
Okay,
So,
great, thank you.
yes. Next slide, please. Egress for all zones here. It's pretty basic. Everything's naturally going to want to go towards King's Gate 1 and 2. Our team will be scattered throughout the lot as we try to push them down the certain access lanes. We don't want it to be a hodgepodge where all cars are just kind of scrambling and it's like the old school game where you got to move a vehicle to try to get a puzzle going here. So our traffic management plan here for internally is we have a traffic director at each access point for each zone, and then we have them scattered throughout the drive lanes to make sure we're flagging cars the correct manner. Because if we're trying to push cars this way, we don't want you turning that way. We're forcing you to go that way because that's the correct plan of egress here. So speed and efficiency here as well. Not only do we want to park you fast and get you off the street, but we want to get you out of here as fast as possible too, because there's nothing more frustrating than people sitting and leaving an event and going, I've been here for 45 minutes trying to leave. So that is just as important to us as getting them off the street as getting them out of the lot.
So is everyone that leaves the site going to go left and go toward Route 58? Is that?
Anything out of King's Gate 1, yes.
Okay.
We're going to force them that way. Anything out of King's Gate 2, if they do want to turn right or turn and go that way, that's fine. I don't have any issue with it, Chief. Do you have any issue with that?
Well, we can stop people coming in
Yep.
with ways, but I can't stop them going out.
Correct.
I think we should try to direct them back out to 58 by taking a left, just to keep them off the smaller roads along there, but I don't know how to stop them.
Correct.
All.
Yeah. So yeah.
And I imagine you probably get most people trying to get back to 495, which is where they're going, so if we provide signage that that's the way of 495, then that's the way.
Absolutely, and that's part of it too with our signage package. As the afternoon hits, we do the backside of our entrance signs. We will have wayfinding directions as well, saying 495 left and all these arrows. So that way people are already accustomed to where they want to go versus waiting for, one of the chief's officers to go, nope, you're going left here, you're going left. So they're already going to see those signs to know that hey, this is how I get to 495. So,
Thank you.
yeah. All right, next slide, please. On-site signage, go ahead. So these right here, these tall flags are just showing us, hey, I parked in zones 1. So the red ones here are just showing you I parked in zones, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What I didn't put on this one now that I realized I should have is all the tall flag signs with the wayfinding and the follow me. There are 16 of them that I already have basically lined up to come here that will be placed in this gravel lot itself. Again, that's a huge piece to us to get pedestrians go the correct way. And then the wayfinding signage, It's a Windmaster sign that has 4 legs, and it blows back and forth in the wind here. It's 28 inches by 44 inches tall. And that is where we put everything in there for, hey, whether this is fire lane access, no parking, this is the 495, this is pickup drop off, everything that we need goes in those, and we spread them out. Also, in the backside of every sign, or inside every Windmaster, we do have 3 to 4 signs, because there could be a situation where we don't want people to go a certain direction. Could be a situation that says, hey, instead of going left here, we need you to go right. So every one of those Windmasters has a backup plan for a sign in them. So AMA might be mad at me, but my signage budget's pretty big here. So again, communication's huge. We know not everyone reads signs, but if we do our best to communicate that message ahead of time, that is the best possible scenario. Next slide, please. Emergency access on site. So one of the key pieces here is Rochester Road. With the 2 police details here, so say there is a situation that requires emergency services on site or a fire truck, whatnot. The officer at Rochester Road and 58 is going to hold all, or is going to direct all incoming traffic still to use the blue lane here. The officer at Rochester and Pine is going to hold all exiting traffic, which would be that red line. For that point, that allows dedicated unimpeded access to the site for any emergency management vehicle. They will have access to either Ida Avenue if they want, or they'll be able to continue all the way to Pine. Next slide. So once they're on Pine, again, we have that officer right there on Pine and Rochester, and then we have the officer at Kingsgate 1. Same scenario here. If they're trying to access Kingsgate 1, we are clearing that turn lane, and all of the middle lane traffic is going to Kingsgate 2. That allows access there. If they want to go down to Kingsgate 2 or 3, we will turn everyone in on that inside turn lane and allow for free unimpeded access down Pine all the way to Kingsgate 3. Next slide. Right here, you'll see that we have these dedicated fire lanes highlighted in blue on the map. Ida Avenue, again, going to the backside of the festival. Coming in off of Kingsgate 1, they will have access anywhere. There isn't a true dedicated fire lane, but we can add that along the cones as much as possible. Otherwise, they would just follow the normal access point there. For Zone 2, we will be able to get them directly in. The key here is where the access is into Zone 1. That's where we'll create that drive lane. I don't know if we're going to show the map here where I propose our header lines, but it'll make more sense when I show you that. And then if they want to enter if they want to enter through Kingsgate 2 and go through Zone 4 and Zone 5, they will have access all the way down through there along the tree line. And then for continuing on Pine Street to Kingsgate 3, they have direct access in through the backside of the festival as well. And then up top along the go-kart track that is no longer there, that is all dedicated fire lanes as well with no parking for any backstage vehicles. Next slide, please. What do we got here? Sorry. Oh, so this is just where we're at with the parking stall counts. The big one for us right now is Zone 2, waiting on the soil sample here. So we're at 2,900 vehicles pending Zone 2 and Zone 1 as well.
So just so we're clear, so right now,
oh, excuse me, Zone 1 is the one we're pending the soil sample. I lied. Zone 1 is where we're pending the soil sample for the 450 vehicles.
so what is the breakdown in Zone 2 between participant and fairgoer numbers? What do you think?
Right now we're at 50-50 for 200 apiece.
Okay, so right now, as we are, you're basing your ticket sales on no more than 22, 25 vehicles?
Yes, so right now we'd say, yeah, if you're taking out the, yes, Zone 1, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
Mr.
because
Chair.
it's not, if it gets approved, then we go forward.
Completely understand, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything on the traffic plan? Chief?
I just have one quick.
No, that's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know, on the page that showed the signage, You said there was one signage that you did not show.
Those are the tall flag signs for the follow me to the entrance signs. I didn't put all those on that slide. I didn't think about it when I originally did that one. So, but it's 16 of them in there. So, and I can update that slide, and I'd be happy to send it to the board too.
That'd be good.
That's
Thank
an
you.
easy one. I can do it here in a little bit.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if you just give us a few minutes, I'm hoping that we can, we've worked together on the plan for quite some time. Maybe we could break it into two components, the traffic component in the road and the parking component. And we can, I think we've all got some comments we'd like to speak about that. If I could start with the traffic component, we've worked together to come up with this plan. We're basing this on years of operation at the other location and the traffic plan that we had in place there. If you remember, we had about 1.25 miles worth of cones on both sides of the total, but on both sides of the parking lot. We used the 3 lanes at that point to be able to have the ability to get traffic flowing by the fair and then to stack traffic as it was parking. So based on the speed of parking, there was always some backup into the road. At that point, we had about 1.25 miles worth of ability to stack cars. This current plan I like. I think it gives us a little bit more ability to do that. We'll be using the inbound lane on Rochester Road, which is the north side of the road, as a part of the stacking, and that's about 0.8 of a mile. And then we've agreed to do a 0.5 mile on each side of Rochester Road, so 1 mile out in the road, so we actually have more ability to stack cars if we need to, and still continue to get traffic by on Route 58. So I like that part of this plan. I think it's going to give us the ability to do what we need to do as far as getting cars off 58, but while they're on 58, still being able to get vehicles around them. I'm happy with the Rochester Road part of it because we're going to be able to keep that outbound lane open, and that means, first, it means that we can get emergency vehicles in, fire trucks, police cars, ambulances if we need to, because that lane will be open. As I mentioned, there's a police officer on each side, so we can just shut it down and use that lane. So that's good for the fair and also good for the residents, because if we had an emergency on that road, we can bring equipment in right there, and then we can clear out that other lane and work on the emergency. It's also good for residents, I think, because it's going to allow residents on Rochester Road and on Pine Street to be able to exit out to 58 and then be able to get back to their homes if there's traffic stacked on that inbound lane by just going around Indian and coming around. Not perfect, it's a little bit of inconvenience, but it'll make it easier for residents to get back to their houses. The same thing with Pine Street. That outbound lane on Pine Street, residents can use, come out of their house and come around, and they can make that loop if they had to, if we've got traffic stacked up on Rochester Road. So I like that ability of this. I think that's going to get us some ability to deal with the traffic that's stacked on the roads and the need to bring in emergency vehicles or the need for residents to be able to get in and out of their homes. So I think that'll work out pretty well. I think probably the most inconvenience would be the people that live on the north side of Rochester Road, because if the traffic's stacked there, they certainly would have to wait until it was an opening to come out of their driveway, but I believe that'll be far better than what we used to have on 58. So I think the traffic-wise part of this, I think we're heading in the right direction. I think our offices will be able to handle that. We have a plan to have enough offices present and a plan to bring in additional offices if we need to carry that out. So I think that's a good part of this, and I'm confident that we can make that work for you. And I'm confident that we'll probably inconvenience residents less than we did to the residents that were on 58. And all the while by assuring that we have public safety. So I do like that part of it. I think that once you get into the parking lot, obviously we've got some, that's going to be their job to handle parking cars, and that's the speed at which they park cars is going to help us to get cars off 58, obviously, as it did in the past. We talked about if there's, you showed the bus lanes that are in there, if there's, in the future, if we come up with some alternate lot, I think part of the conditions are that we agree that we're going to have a discussion before we move forward to that, because I've got to alter this traffic plan to be able to get them there. That's still on the table, and I think that based on discussions we already had, we probably will be able to do that. And so that brings us into the lot. Did you
Yeah, so again, first of all, I want to condone Chief Dufilly and obviously the police for.
Chief, if you could just make sure you use the microphone.
They worked hard for the traffic plan, and I think that will work fine. And obviously, I think everyone here in public safety feels it will. They always make it work, and I think you'll do a good job of it. What really we want to speak about right now is the parking lot plan, okay? And a lot of the questions that you have been asking about vehicle traffic, emergency traffic, pedestrian traffic, fire lanes, have not been addressed, okay? And the 11 by 17 photo you just got, we just got that, okay, a couple hours ago. And that's not a professional plan by any means, okay? And I say that because the gentleman, the traffic engineer, who I have a lot of respect for because he's developed a good plan, showed us originally a plot plan of a properly done parking plan, okay? It was all engineered, shown out, every lot was striped, and it showed where everything was. We saw that meeting on April 21st. We went with all public safety chiefs, town administrator, and we saw it. And the first thing we said, we were very impressed, because they said, oh yeah, we're gonna stripe every individual parking space is gonna be striped. And we said, wow, and it's dirt. Oh yeah, we'll do it 3 or 4 times throughout the fair. And we made suggestions to that, to you folks, about fire lanes, about emergency access, signage, about what they were gonna be labeled for each zone, and they were gonna make the changes to that, okay? And they were gonna present us into a professional plan. And I would love that gentleman to show that plan he had, whether it was a sample or whether it was the one for Edaville. But it showed us a professional plan that you guys were gonna develop for us, and we expected that. And then, all of a sudden, no one remembers about it, okay? So when you went to the last select board meeting and you heard the traffic plan, which is the same plan, that slide was missing. And that was bothersome to us, to have that missing. Because a lot of your questions could have been answered right away of how everything flows in the parking lot, okay? So we again went to a TRC meeting, what, yesterday? The day before? And we were again told, they had already agreed all this, that we would get a plan. Okay, no one remembered it from them, but we would get a plan. That's what you got, okay? When you take that and you combine it into when they showed where the buses are gonna park, where vehicles are gonna go, it doesn't match. It's not even close, okay? We were told we'd get a plan that would be individually. It will show how many lots are available to park on, okay? Personally, I don't have a problem if there's 5,000 lots or 2,000 lots. But the fear is, we're gonna park that.
Yeah.
And they're gonna say it's 2,900 parking spots and only 2,500 fit. Okay, and there's no remote parking. So what do? We're stuck in the same problem we had before. Okay? So all we've asked is to have a plan, a professional plan that shows and outlines how it was gonna be done. Exactly what was agreed upon. That doesn't do it, okay? And I'm not here to be the bad guy, because we all agree on this, okay? So I recommend that you don't approve your conditions until we solve that, okay? I have no problem with the conditions, and you'll go through them. Those are fine. But we have to solve for a safety reason. I can't have firefighters and fire trucks coming in, and we don't have a plan of how they're getting in. We're just being told, oh, we're gonna set it up, and you'll have cones, and you'll know this. That's not a plan. Okay, that's not a plan of where the pedestrians go. That's not a plan of what we were told was gonna happen. It would be striped, and we would see where these things are. And it would give us verification that there are 2,900 lots that can safely go into that parking spot. And that's all we asked for, okay? And that's what we got. I don't know, do you both understand? I mean, I don't know where we go with that, but I don't know. I know what we were told we were gonna get. And I know there's a debate whether it was a sample or it was the real plan. We felt we saw the real plan, and we all will agree with that. Even if it was a sample, that's what you told we were gonna get, and we didn't get it. And that's why these folks have so many questions. So,
Chief, I was the one that went through that with you, and I can tell you
with
right,
all of us.
Yep. And I can tell you right now, I never showed a plan that had any sort of 100% striped stalls. All we do is header lines. No large-scale event parking in this nation does that with individually striped stalls. If we put individually striped stalls down there, our traffic flow will decrease 10 times. You want to talk about safety and life matters. When we are trying to manually 90-degree turn a vehicle into a parking lot, go to any grocery store or anything around here, right? And you're 90-degree turning into a parking stall, it doesn't work. Any operator in this country, they paint these header lines, what's on your sheets in front of you, and they do the zipper parking front to back, right? Because when we drive them in versus all of a sudden we're trying to, hey, you gotta park in this stall, you gotta park in this stall. No, you come in, we set the distance between these vehicles, and we bring you in so everything is parked accordingly. And I know the photo I showed, and it was of the Scarborough Renaissance Festival, I'm pretty sure. And it literally showed the white lines running across. It was an aerial view with the drone footage that I took. So I know it didn't show individual striped stalls. As for, the emergency management piece of if you want us to come up with a checklist of, hey, what is the scenario? Scenario is they want to come into Kings Gate 1. I can absolutely do that. I have no problem doing that. If you want a scenario coming into Kings Gate 2, want a scenario coming into Kings Gate 3, I don't recall us ever going through that specifically, but I'm happy to do it. I have no problem with that. There's nothing more important to me than safety. I will take that over anything else in this world. My brother is a chief in Minnesota, and my uncle is a lieutenant. My assistant hockey coach is a fire chief in the city of St. Paul. We talk about all these things. So I understand how important it is, and I have no problem building you any sort of checklist like that, if you would like.
And if I can say something, for 43 years, we've managed to do this in the other site. No even headers, nothing. Park them tight, we get them in, emergency vehicles have complete access. And this year, with our participants parking in a different area, we're not even gonna have anything where they're getting, bundled up, trying to get in or get out or anything with any of our guests. So this is gonna run so much more smoothly than we have ever had before in 43 years.
Mr. Chair. Chief Weston, you said you wanted to see a professional plan. By that, do you mean a site plan that's been approved by, say, our traffic engineer, for example?
I think that's a good alternative. I think we could do that as a group, but we want to see a plan.
Right.
And although, again, I do respect the gentleman's here, I'm going to disagree with what they just said.
Right.
Because I know what we saw. And I won't argue with you whether it was individual lots, but that's what we saw, was lots. And we all said it. We all said, oh, wow, you're going to stripe every one of those? And they said, yeah, we're going to do individual. I said, okay. And we're going to do it a few times to the thing. We all saw that, okay? So, and this is what he gave you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't lie. I mean, that doesn't show us anything.
No.
So, and again, this might be as simple as one of your conditions is, the public safety creates approve a plan, a professional plan that shows, and that way we have a document of how things are supposed to be done, okay? And no more, I don't care if it's been done 43 years, this is how we've done it. This is a new venue, and we're gonna do it professionally, and that's how we approach things. And we've done everything else professionally. That's not. So that's where my issue is.
So then how come this was, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
Thank you, Amy. So part of when we get to the conditions, is the conditions are nonetheless subject to site plan review by the planning board. And I think that goes to the question of whether or not the parking lot, how those, particular stalls or lots or the traffic lanes are done. It is. So it is a condition that the planning board will review a professionally prepared plan and, approve it or not approve it. So I just want to point that out.
If I may, so typically the planning board has their traffic engineer look at it. And it seems to me that would satisfy the public safety chiefs more than this. I mean, you talk about an area for a bus turnaround. I see parking spaces here, but they're not really delineated. And that's just one example. So I think if the planning board if they're requiring a site plan review, they need an official professional site plan, and their traffic engineer should approve it. I mean, that's standard things that the planning board do. And if the chiefs are fine with just having themselves approve it, I'm good with that as well, but just talking traditionally, that's what happens.
Who prepared this? So, because that bus turnaround and drop-off, none of that is on here.
Yeah.
Correct.
Nothing's on there.
No, I'm sorry if I misunderstood. It was just showing the parking lines. Not, I didn't think it needed to be in there. And again, that's one of those things that I'm happy to add. And I mean, I've got, I don't know if I'm able to connect to the TV or HDMI, I can show you every bit of data we have on this and what it really looks like across the country. It's standard process, and I'm happy to show you anything we have, and even the photos I showed during the Chiefs meeting.
Chief Ryan, do you have anything to add?
No, just to reiterate what Chief West said is, we did originally see some sort of plant lined in the parking lot and showed a lot better traffic flow around where the people would be parking, gave us a better idea of what the buffer zones were going to be, where pedestrians would be walking, where emergency vehicles could make it in. And like the Chief said, we saw that and we're like, love that idea. We love knowing where this is. And yes, it's a new venue, and our emergency access for the old location was set. It was always open. It was, we knew where it was. It was a set entranceway and everything else. And now that we're moving to a new location, as Chief West said, it's the perfect time to get that plan drawn up and shown so that we can see what it looks like, so that on day one, our staff isn't pulling into that parking lot not knowing where to go and delaying getting access. So that's why having that there, at least before, we had staff, we actually could show them the overhead of it and say, this is your access road, this is how you're getting in, this is where this gate is, this is where that gate is. And we were able to do that around the outside of the parking lot. With the change in the gate locations, our crew may have to go through the parking lot to get to certain areas, and without being able to show them, hey, this is where you're going to go in because this is where cars are going to be parked.
Yeah.
An already stressful situation could be made worse. So.
So are there any other questions from the board, chiefs, Mr. Cannon? Any other comment on this, what we just were presented with the traffic management plan? Anybody have anything on that?
I just have one quick question.
Yes.
So a lot of what we heard was for Pine Street to come in off of Rochester Road, correct? What about coming in Pine Street the other way? Will there be a police officer down that way? Because I know majority is, a lot of the townspeople know the back way.
Right.
Yes, yeah,
Even though Waze won't send them there.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
so our plan is to, like we did before, use Waze to cut off for
Right.
people who don't live in town. Obviously, there'll be some level of people that come in from that way because they know that way. Same thing with Beach Street. We're talking with Middleborough, we can't, because we're the town of Carver, we can't cut off roads on Waze in Middleborough. We can cut off Rochester Road, which it'll go wherever, it'll divert traffic if we shut off Rochester Road, and we can ask Middleborough to do the same. So that'll take the out-of-town traffic out of it. There's no solution to the inside traffic except our signage telling them to go to Rochester Road so that we can use that as a stacking area. And for the people that do go, we're gonna have to have an officer in the area to deal with that. Yeah. But I believe we'll see a large percentage of that won't come because they'll be on Waze. One of the things that I've learned over the past few years is no one looks at signs anymore. They just look at their phone and drive to wherever it tells them to drive to. So Waze is very helpful with that part of it. And I think the local traffic that may use it, we can deal with that.
Okay.
But the plan is to cut off Meadow and all of that so that we
Right.
direct everything to here by Waze or by Google Maps.
I'm sure it's not a large percent, but I was just concerned with the
Yep, no, it is.
X amount of people just try to take the back roads, and then they don't hit anything till they first come.
Yes.
As long as
Yep.
that's, okay.
And we're
Thank
going to
you.
have to, as, part of this is a developing plan because we haven't done this here yet. So we've talked about that. We may need to move people around to deal with those problems if they arise, but we're going to try to get ahead of them with the, using the GPS part of it, and we'll see what local traffic comes that way. But we will be prepared to deal with that if it does come up.
Just before we move forward, just Mr. Cannon, through you to Mr. Bott, I know we have a joint meeting with the planning board coming up at 7 o'clock. I think that meeting is going to be very delayed. So I don't know if we could get hold of those planning board members or tell them our meeting is going to be a little bit later. But I don't see any way we're going to make to that meeting at 7 o'clock. So we might want to try that. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
And one other quick question too, as far as when Edaville, was there an emergency plan there where the vehicles could get in and out? Well, I know there's different gates we're talking about now, but was there a set?
Yeah, so we had an emergency plan at one point through I think it was the Christmas Festival, the Cranberry Festival, developed by the EOC, so forth. So we had all our gates well labeled, all our fire locks. We had all the egress points labeled, so we knew where to go at those points. those points.
Okay.
I won't say that the parking was anything like this.
Right,
But
right.
as far as where we were going for gates, our emergency accesses and stuff like that, that is all pre-planned ahead of time.
Okay.
Again, this changes a lot with new buildings and all that stuff.
Sure.
And that's why we're trying to get it more documented than we had.
Okay, thank you.
Hi there. If I may, just to that point, through our conversations with the chiefs, we've also discussed those options as well. And I think if you look at those maps, through the Ida Ave entrance, that would bring emergency services through up to what will be Emergency Gate A. And we've talked about labeling gates as we did on the other site as well to make that clear for both your staff, our staff, and anybody that needs to know those. And then on the far left side would be Emergency Gate B. So those would be our two main emergency gates should anything, God forbid, happen that emergency services need to get to the site. So they would have complete access on either left or right, with the left side being Kings Gate 3 emergency access that is strictly for emergency vehicles that would go up the fire lane, which is on this map, it shows the go-kart track. But that would, unimpeded, go directly to access B, Gate B there. And then in terms of the parking lot and those gates, those would be as needed. And obviously through communication, we'd be able to make sure that not only was it is a dedicated lane, but there would be no pedestrians and things like that in the in-between there. Correct. And through all of this, we have the emergency operations plan, and there's clear communication and the lines of communication down and through. And I think that over the past several years, we have been working directly with the chiefs in order to make sure that that was something that was happening, because not only is it important to the town, but it's important to us as a business and as people. We want to make sure that everybody is safe within the site. So those plans are in place, and I think that we have been working with you to make sure that that is in place. And I think that you guys could probably acknowledge that, agree with that, because we are working to make sure that these needs are met, and we just want to make sure that that is understood, and we are happy to continue to work to make sure that those needs are met. But right now, it seems a little like, hey, we're not doing that, but we have been, and we want to make sure that we continue to do that.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, if I may, Mr. Chair, ask the chiefs if this board were to condition our approval on a professional plan that addressed parking, ingress, egress, safety vehicles, walking, all the things that you have a concern about. Would that be a condition that you would like us to impose? I mean, I think we would be happy to do that. I think I can speak for everyone.
Yes, we would accept that.
Thank you. Okay.
And if I'm so sorry, Mr. Chairman. We have that EOP plan for this new site that we will be presenting to you guys probably within the next week. So we will have that for everybody, as well as town administrator keep on file like we did last year. And then,
Is there the possibility to show you some stuff, or?
Well, before we do that, I want to turn to our member on Zoom, Mr. Carter, and see if there's if you have any comment. Oh, we're not? There we go. Sorry, we couldn't hear you for a minute, but we can hear you now.
It sounds like you guys put a lot of work into the parking plan. Seems to be pretty fluid based on what can come up. I do realize some of the chief's concerns, and I think that, you're close to having a resolution, so some kind of conditional approval might work. But one of my questions, though, and maybe I missed it, for any outside parking, such as the R. Morse site, is that now off the table, or are you still looking for additional parking? And if you found it, does that mean that the number of 2,900, 2,600 would then increase, and you'd have to come back to the board for a secondary approval?
we had almost had everything finalized with another auxiliary lot. There was a lot of things that we had to go through in terms of zone board approval with another town and so forth. So that was part of the issue, and it would take too long. So we kind of gave up on that. We are in the process of discussions with another property area within Carver, And so should that happen, as we've discussed, as in our conditions, we would make sure the chief was okay with that and then bring it to the select board to vote on.
I'd like to amend that all the public safety chiefs are okay with that.
Yeah, obviously, yes.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Carter?
No, that's all.
All right, so the next thing we're going to do, we have a number of conditions on the entertainment licenses. We read through these at the last meeting. Some of them have been changed, some haven't. I'm going to go through these one by one. If you have a question or a comment, please stop me. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next one, okay? So the first one is, obviously, the fair operator will comply with the traffic plan dated July 1st, 2025. And if we have to change that date, we'll change the date.
So,
yeah.
Mr. Chair, through you,
Yes.
so based on this discussion, I think it would be appropriate for the board to discuss, am I close enough? To discuss the suggestion of the fire chief that, my understanding is he was asking that you not approve the license, right, until
Yeah.
you have a properly prepared plan. Is that your position?
That was what I asked them about,
Oh,
and they
okay. Well,
agreed.
I guess my goal was, we have a lot of conditions that have been set here. I was hoping that we could come to an agreement on the existing conditions and then add that additional condition to the end, call it condition number 20. I guess that way we'd have agreement on everything else except that.
Okay.
I know a lot of people have spent a lot of time on these conditions.
Right, but we don't have a date for the plan because they haven't produced the plan that the safety chiefs are looking for.
Mr. Corbo, what's your opinion? Should we go through these conditions as we have in front of us, or should we wait and come back and do this again?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess my suggestion would be go through all of the conditions with the exception of the ones relating to parking, and then we can revisit that issue before you take a final vote.
Okay.
That make sense?
Everybody good with that? All right. So again, number one, the fair operator will comply with the traffic control plan dated, and we'll have to see what the ultimate date is. Number two does deal with parking, so we'll skip over that. Number three deals with parking.
So if I could, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. So for number two, right, this relates to the auxiliary parking, right, which as of right now, they don't have any. But based on comments we just heard that they may be using another site in Carver, I don't know if that is something that the chiefs are aware of, or if you want to hear anything about what that.
I don't know either.
Well, I think that...
Are you aware of that at all?
The chiefs should be aware of it, for sure.
So we're aware of the concept, we talked about this, that they're still looking for a spot, but they don't have one. And I think I mentioned that in my first comments, that if they come up with a spot, I think we have to, not you reconvene, but we have to reconvene, because I need time to change my traffic plan to get them to that spot. So
Yeah.
I think if we're going with, they're gonna park just these parking lots, and that's what we're approving, that's, and if they wanna have a bigger parking lot, and they find a bigger one, then we have to work together to get that to happen.
If the advice of council is that we shouldn't be dealing with any conditions that deal with parking, almost all of these conditions deal with parking in one way, shape, or form. Looking through these quickly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the first one I see that doesn't deal with parking is condition 8. The fair operator shall retain the services of the town's Department of Public Works for the purpose of setting up and taking down, even this is parking, traffic control devices each day. I think this is...
Mr. Chairman, if I could, and we could defer to council here, I would like to have the board's opinion on number 7. I think we seem to have a little bit of a disagreement here on the number of detail officers required on the site.
All right.
And the key being here, the fair operator shall retain at least 12 detail officers, and then you see in the blue, King Richard's Affairs wants it to be up to 12.
Yeah.
So we actually see the 12 being a minimum, of which if more are required, then more are required, but we don't want the 12 to be the maximum.
Well, Chief Dupley, I'm sorry to put this on you, but I have to ask you,
So I'll tell you this, we've always worked with 12 so far. And again, we're talking about numbers that I really don't want to discuss, but we've dealt with that before. I think that's a minimum until we see what this new site looks like and how it works. We may need more, And we've always worked in the past, when there's been inclement weather, to work with them to cut back, when they cut back the number of alcohol sites. So we've always done that before, and I think we should retain that authority with the town and with the chief of police to make that decision. I think we should leave it as a minimum of 12 and go from there as we move forward and see how this develops, and see what we need in the space.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
may I comment?
Sure.
Thank you. So, can you hear me? Pull this over closer. So, what we're doing here really is looking at the language, and it does provide for an increase in officers, all right? So, originally what it said, yes, is that the fair operator, let's see here, that it would be sort of a minimum, but then it went on to say in the chief's discretion. So you had this sort of conflicting language in that first sentence. And I think it makes more sense the way that it's being posed here, that the fair operator shall retain at least 12 detailed police officers. So the chief, as he said, that's what they've worked with, and that's fine, that's acceptable to the fair. Let's have the chief put it in here. The chief can ask for the 12 detail officers, right, at the discretion of the chief of police. So that gives him, if there is an inclement day, he could be a little less. As he said, sometimes they work with them on that. But then it goes on, the chief of police in his reasonable discretion and consultation with the fair operator may require that additional officers be added based on operating conditions and to ensure public safety. So if there's a reason, whether it's traffic reasons or there's another public safety or order reason, the chief has that ability. So it is in here. And what we're trying to achieve here is just to make I thought the language was sort of conflicting in the first sentence, and to make it make a little more sense. And that's why I was suggesting that change.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I don't think that conflicts at all. A fair operator shall retain at least 12 detailed officers, and more if the police chief thinks it's reasonable to request more.
Right?
So it can't read that it wants to be up to 12.
I see.
I think correct. Is that correct, Chief Dufley?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
It's not a conflict.
I think I see what's being said, and it's the language, if you read it the way it is here, you say you have the discretion to do less than 12, but if you say at least 12, it means that you always have to do 12. You can't do any less than 12. So I kind of agree that if it says up to 12, you still have the discretion to add more to that, but you also can do less if you deem less.
But
right now, the way it's written, you can't do less. You always have to have at least 12.
But I thought he wanted it to be 12.
I think that based on my discretion, I can do one if I want.
Right.
And up to, and I
And
can do it
that's
wrong.
not
But I
the
think that we've
language.
got to set a standard for what it is.
Yeah.
A normal operating day is 12.
Okay.
And we're not going to cut that back. We've worked over the past several years to do that when we need to, and we worked with the fair and we'll continue to do that. But I think setting it at 12 is, I hear what you're saying, but I just think setting it at 12, knowing how things sometimes change, we want to make sure that we control that, not the fair.
So, through you,
Mr.
Mr. Chair,
Cuomo, yes.
based on this discussion, and through you to the chief, would you be amenable to changing the last sentence in paragraph 7 so that it says the chief, if we left it at least 12, and then the last sentence would say the chief, in his reasonable discretion and in consultation with the fair operator, may require that additional or less officers be provided based on operating conditions?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the spirit of it.
Okay. Anybody have an issue with that?
It should say, or fewer officers, but that's just language.
Okay. All right, so everybody's good with that, right? All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Mr. Cannon, are there any other conditions? Because there's an awful lot of conditions we're going to end up skipping here, so I don't really see the point in going through and reading them all.
I don't either. If there are two I really could focus on, I want to say it's 18 and 19, which have been added since our technical review committee meeting, which was only on Monday. You know, again, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for the tight time frame here.
Yep.
But you can see on 18, literally I copied and pasted from number 7, put in at least 10 firefighters. King Richard's Fair did amend that, if you can see it in the blue. And I believe that the fire chief is okay with the language in the blue. my understanding?
That's correct.
So we're okay with the changes proposed by King Richard's Fair for number 18,
Okay?
okay? On number 19, the Emergency Medical Services Chief, he puts on an extra ambulance regardless of the traffic. When King Richard's Fair is operating, and he can describe it better than me, whether it's early in the season when it's hot weather, there's a potential for calls to be made to King Richard's Fair. He puts on, again, an additional ambulance. We want to see that language stay at least one, and that gives him full staffing. And I'll be happy to turn it over to the chief, but we'd like to change that language. I think to go back to the original that I proposed, myself and town council.
And the one you proposed, Mr. Cannon, is
In red, 19
okay.
in red.
Mhm.
Okay. Chief, any issues with that?
No, so I just wanted to give you some backstory on this. So
Okay.
since I've been chief and before then, on the weekends we've had the fair, we've always had 2 crews on. And it's not because of the traffic. It's because of the number of people coming into town, which increases the chances for calls. We've had motor vehicle accidents that have happened because of traffic, and the big thing is when we have that influx, we want to make sure that we can provide an ambulance to the fair, but also then still have an ambulance available for the residents. So we've done that. Our minimum staffing is 3. So unlike some towns, when they add on an ambulance, they have to add multiple staff. We add 1 person for the day shifts while they're in. So we've been doing that. Again, we've been doing that for a very long time. It's also the increased potential for calls. I mean, we do get calls to the fair to help them out. Sometimes we go and we don't transport, just to evaluate and assess. But there are times when we go and we do transport, and it is normally in the beginning of the year when the traffic is less that we're there more often because of the heat, because people not hydrating well enough with proper beverages. Happens in the summer. So it just happens. And then we end up there. Then as it gets cooler out and the weather gets better and more people start going, then the traffic does become a little bit of a hindrance for us, but not as much. But yeah, traffic is really not my trigger point for why we put staff on when the fair is going. It's more of the influx of thousands of people in one location, and the fact that that's when most medicals are going to happen is when you're in a group of people, especially when there's physical activities going on, people are participating in physical activities. People may trip and fall, people may, many different things can happen. Bee stings, everything, so.
Well, it was clearly my goal to get this done this evening, but it's clear that we are not in agreement on a number of important issues in these
Right, Mr.
entertainment licenses. So I don't think we can move forward on this tonight. Mr. Corbo, I'm going to ask you and get together with Mr. Cannon and put together the wording for an additional license to comply with Public Safety's request for the parking lot. And let's get that to the fair. Yes, Ms. Ewens?
Real quick, I think that in 18 and 19, the word may, in his reasonable discretion, be changed to shall. I want to give the chiefs the absolute authority to change those numbers if they see fit. I don't want anyone to say, well, you can do it, but you're not allowed, or whatever. No, shall.
We need to, there is urgency to get this done on everybody's behalf. We're certainly not going to wait till our August meeting to get this done. So, Mr. Cannon, I'm sorry, but we are going to have to schedule an additional meeting to get this done. I don't think there's any way you're going to have all this ready by our July 7th meeting. I don't think there's...
So, Mr. Chair, if I could, and through you, so I guess, there are a couple of other issues, right, that we can talk through, right? And from what I'm hearing from the chiefs, they don't object to you granting the license subject to their approval of the parking plan. And it's also sort of my understanding, right, that the only remaining issue with that is with respect to the actual, striping of the lots, right?
Actual plan that we can approve and see how things are laid out.
So, and in terms of the rest of the traffic, like the cones and the signs, that's all kind of...
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but earlier you advised me not to read any of the conditions or go over them if they had to do with parking.
I'm sorry, I really thought that only meant the first one.
Okay.
The first item.
All right, so let's go back, let's go through. That's all right. Okay. And let's do as many of these as we can, okay? So condition number 3, Until Lot 1 is approved by the planning board for
I think you
parking.
skipped number 2, sorry, you didn't finish, we never read number 2.
Well, I thought part 1 and 2 was one we couldn't address.
I think we can.
Well, this is relating to the auxiliary
Yeah, so
lot.
we
And
can
what this
address
says is that they would be, right now, if it's approved,
Yeah.
they can only use the parking that is abutting the fair site, which was just described. However, they can at a later time come back to you with an auxiliary site, subject to the approval of the chiefs and the board at a properly posted meeting. So that's what this condition number 2
All
would
right, so I'm
involve.
fine. Number 2 says parking shall include the parking areas abutting the fair site, the fair lot, and with the prior written approval of the select board, parking may include later identified auxiliary parking lots contained in an amended traffic control plan. The fair operator acknowledges and agrees that the board's approval must be obtained from the board at a duly noticed public meeting, and the board does not guarantee that the approval will be given in time to accommodate a specific date. Any issues with that?
Mr. Chair, yes, I think it should say, and the prior written approval of the Select Board and the 3 public safety chiefs, because ultimately, they're the ones who are they're the ones looking for this professional plan, showing all the parking and so on.
I have no objection to that.
My question is on the traffic control plan. Do they already approve the traffic control plan? So is it redundant in the sense that if they have to approve the traffic control plan, is it already covered? Do we have to add that, or is it already kind of in there?
So through you, Mr. Chair, so this would be, the plan that they're looking at right now is based on only using the fair site parking. So this paragraph number 2 would kick in if they find the auxiliary lot. And in that case, the approval of an auxiliary lot should require the approval of the chiefs and the board. So I think that's a reasonable change.
Is there would you recommend, Mr. Corvo, that we take individual motions on each as we go through this? Might make it simpler than having to go back.
Sure.
And all right, any objections to number 2?
So you want a motion on that?
Yes.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve number 2 as amended.
All right.
Second, and the amendment is, and the 3 public safety chiefs, after the phrase prior written approval of the Select Board.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Dan
Mr.
Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mr. Carter?
I could read his lips.
I think lip reading said aye, but I'm not.
My part is designed.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask? Could we approve this in number 1? If we're adding a condition number 20 for this plan? I didn't hear any, I don't think I heard any objections here. I heard objections here.
No?
Could we ask the chiefs?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we-
exactly what we're doing. Yeah. What is your question? Mr. Cannon, give it to them.
So I didn't hear any objections about the traffic plan, right, the one we saw tonight. I did hear objections about this one, of which we're going to add a condition 20 to make sure this is addressed.
That's correct.
So
All right.
I think we can
So-
address number 1.
So I can make a
Going out to June
motion.
30th.
I'll make a
2025.
motion to approve number 1 with the plan dated June 30th, 2025.
All right. There a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mr. Carter?
John Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. Number 3, until Lot 1 is approved by the planning board for parking, on-site parking is limited 2,600 vehicles. After Lot 1 is approved by the planning board, parking in the fair lot shall be limited to 2,900 vehicles. When the fair lot is full, the auxiliary lot, if any, may be used to park any additional vehicles up to the number of vehicles shown on the amended parking plan. I wonder if we can approve that based on the discussions we've had about possibly lining that parking lot. That might change the numbers.
I'll make a motion to approve, but for discussion.
All right.
I
I'll
think
second it for discussion.
All right.
I just want to check that number, 2,600.
That was my question. That's why
less
I
than what
made
they gave
the,
us earlier.
Yeah,
I mean, more
earlier.
than what they gave us earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question on that. So it says 2,025 vehicles, zones 3, 4, and 5, and then zone 2's 400. We said half of that would be,
That's 200.
Yeah.
so it should be 2,25 vehicles, right, instead of
I
2,600?
got to go back to that page.
It's the last page on the packet.
Well, yeah, let me go to that page.
The very end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Very last
24.
I have it.
Yeah, 'cause I had asked about that earlier.
Yep.
So it should have been 2225 was the number if Zone 1 wasn't approved, because we said half of Zone 2. And then if you do approve Zone 1, it would be 2675 is the numbers that we had earlier.
That's
So-
actually correct, because
That's right.
Zone 2,
I can
half of
amend
those
that if...
are not,
if-
are not public parking spaces.
All right, so I'm going to amend my motion that on-site parking is limited to 2225, and after Lot 1 is approved, it will be 2675.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion?
Mr. Chair, before you vote?
Yes.
Maybe we can add here that, I don't know if we should make a reference to the subsequent approval of the other plan.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't we just say, so
As outlined in condition 20, I mean, is that what you're trying to get at?
I'm going to say like subject to approval of,
Professional plan
yeah.
approved by the 3
Planning board?
safety chiefs.
And the planning board, so
And the
which
planning
they,
board.
so, subject to.
Should I withdraw and make a new motion?
Or just amend it.
All right.
It might be easier just to read the whole motion again.
So through you, Mr. Chair, for discussion by you guys. So it would start off by saying, subject to approval of the striping plan by the public safety chiefs, see paragraph 20. Parking shall include the parking areas abutting the fair site and with the prior written approval of the select board. Oh, wait, am I reading the wrong one?
you're on the wrong-
Shoot, okay, sorry. So we'll say, subject to approval of the striping plan by the public safety chiefs, see paragraph 20, and until Lot 1 is approved by the planning board for parking, on-site parking is limited to 2,225 vehicles. After Lot 1 is approved by the planning board and the chiefs, and the striping plan by the chiefs, and the striping plan by the chiefs, parking in the fair lot shall be limited to 2,675. When the fair lot is full,
25.
the auxiliary lots, if any, may be used to park any additional vehicles up to the number of vehicles shown on the amended parking
I
plan.
think it's limited to 2225.
2225?
2,225.
2625, I think you said 2675.
2675
sorry,
is the...
75 is what I have.
Yeah, that was
That's if the
total.
lot gets,
Yeah,
auxiliary
lot
lot
That's
is approved.
450 vehicles.
Yeah, it's
Oh, I'm sorry.
2225
That's
without
right.
that.
But,
Yeah,
That's right, zone 2 is
Zone
400, zone 1 is 400.
okay.
Mr. Corbo?
Yes.
So it says until lot 1 is approved, on-site parking is limited to 2225. Okay,
Yes,
just-
and then after Lot 1 is approved by the planning board and the striping plan by the public safety chiefs, parking in the fair lot shall be limited to 2,675.
2675, yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we're calling it a striping plan. Is that exactly what this is going to be, a stripe?
No, it's a public safety professional plan.
Right, but if I think of a striping plan, I'm
Parking
thinking the
plan?
stripes are going to be
Yeah.
shown.
Oh, okay, so it
And you
wasn't-
just
Oh,
talked,
parking.
Yeah, perhaps you should call it
Mr. Chair.
just a
Parking.
Yeah,
Parking
that was
plan,
our
yes.
understanding, this was,
Yeah.
as was proposed, professionally prepared parking plan, subject to review of the chiefs.
Yeah.
And then in 20, maybe we'll address some other things, but I would think striping is not the term, at least now.
Call it a parking
Well, the
plan.
plan that we discussed with the chiefs.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion that could take place with the chiefs, and they can review
So
the
do you want
plan.
to
and-
call it professional parking plan?
If I may,
Yes.
I don't think it should just say striping plan, because it includes all the egresses they're talking about, the public safety lanes, the walking access, so it's more than just striping.
Okay, so should we call it professional fair site parking plan?
I think that works.
Okay.
If the chiefs are okay with that.
Yeah, obviously, we're expecting to see a striping plan, but I think
Right.
the definition you have is fine.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to read it again, Mr. Chair?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. All right. Okay. Subject to approval of the professional fair site parking plan by the public safety chiefs, see paragraph 20, and until Lot 1 is approved by the planning board for parking, on-site parking is limited to 2,225 vehicles. After Lot 1 is approved by the planning board and the professional fair site parking plan approved by the chiefs, parking in the fair lot shall be limited to 2,675 vehicles. When the fair lot is full, the auxiliary lots, if any, may be used to park additional vehicles up to the number of vehicles shown on the amended parking plan.
Wait a second.
Okay.
What does that last sentence mean?
Well, so I guess it refers back to number 2, where they can add an auxiliary lot with an
No,
amended
that's already
plan.
taken care in the second sentence. Lot 1 is supposed to be the auxiliary lot, correct?
No, lot one's on site.
Oh, Lot 1's on site.
I know.
Yeah.
You want to say,
But that hasn't been approved either.
do you want to say auxiliary off-site lot?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to
Want me to
approve.
take another shot at it,
One more
Mr. Chair?
time, Mr. Bravo.
Okay. Subject to the approval, okay, so number 2, subject to the approval of a professional fair site parking plan by the town's public safety chiefs, see paragraph 20, and until Lot 1 is approved by the planning board for parking, on-site parking is limited to 2,225 vehicles. After Lot 1 is approved by the planning board and the professional fair site parking plan is approved by the chiefs, parking in the fair lot shall be limited to 2,675 vehicles. When the fair lot is full, any off-site auxiliary lots, if any, may be used to park in any additional vehicles up to the number of vehicles shown on an amended parking plan as described in paragraph 2.
So I'm going to withdraw my original motion, and I'll make a motion to approve paragraph 3 as amended.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right, moving right along.
I feel like I'm at a town meeting.
Number 4, the fair operator shall post electronic message boards at locations designated by the chief of police or his designee that shall inform motorists when the fair lot is full, and directing them to the auxiliary parking lots if applicable, and then informing them that when all parking is full. Some of these message boards may be supplied by Mass DOT District 5 office in Taunton. The fair operator shall reimburse the town for any expenses it incurs in leasing, renting, maintaining, or repairing the sign.
Make a motion to approve paragraph 4.
Second.
So motion and a second, yes, Ms. Hewitt.
So I don't understand, maybe the Chief Dufely can help me with this. Some of these message boards may be supplied by Mass DOT. I thought we were getting all of them from Mass DOT, as we did last year.
So we have some of our own, and Mass DOT, if we require any messages boards coming on the off-ramps from 495, they would have to be supplied by Mass DOT because they're,
So you're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mr. Carter?
John Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. Number 5 has been removed. I'm sorry, number 5 has been replaced by a new number 5. All right. No parking of vehicles shall be allowed on any streets in the town of Carver, and patrons will not be permitted to walk to the fair from the remote parking locations. The fair operator shall be solely responsible for arranging shuttle transportation for customers parking in the auxiliary lots if applicable. Written contracts for bus transportation for the duration of the fair shall be provided to the Carver Town Administrator prior to issuance of the license. If the use of the auxiliary lots is requested, written contracts for the use of the lot will be provided by the fair operator to the Select Board with an amended traffic plan showing the number of parking spaces in the lots prior to the approval of the plan by the board.
Make a motion to approve paragraph 5.
I second that with an amendment. Will be provided by the fair operator to the Select Board and the 3 safety chiefs.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Hewens. So is that provided by the fair operator to the Select Board and the public safety chiefs? Is it also,
It's the amended traffic plan. If there's an amended traffic
Yeah.
plan, that has to be agreed. The safety chiefs have to be okay with that, too.
okay. And what about, should we add prior to the approval of the plan by the board and the chiefs?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Hoffman?
I'll wait till it's, has it been seconded?
I don't
Second.
remember. Who, did someone?
It
make a
was
mo-
seconded,
seconded
but it was
with that
amended, so,
amendment.
so I'll move the amendment.
Yes.
Second.
I have a question. What's the difference besides the no parking of vehicles shall be allowed in any streets to number 2? We already talked about the auxiliary lot on number 2 to get approval from the chiefs. Isn't that just repetitive?
It does seem repetitive.
It probably should be in there, though. It's good to say everything that you want, in my opinion, but
So through you, Mr. Chair? So number 2 talks about the process, I guess, of approving the auxiliary lot, and this does add, I think, to that. But I think the primary purpose of this paragraph, as compared to number 2, is making sure that there's bus transportation.
Okay.
Right, I think the difference here is that, right, now we're explicitly saying, no parking on the streets. The only parking allowed will be at the fair site or any approved auxiliary lots. And if there are auxiliary lots, then there needs to be a transportation plan as part of that.
and no walking on the streets.
no
It
walking,
actually adds
correct.
that.
Okay,
Do we have a motion?
we did have a motion in a second.
All right, any discussion, anything?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Carl Carter says aye.
Thank you. All right, number 6, all traffic control measures in the parking plan will be in place for each day of the fair, regardless of the weather, unless adjusted by notice from the chief of police.
Motion to approve paragraph 6.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right. Number 7, the fair operator shall retain, I'm sorry, did we come up with adjusted wording?
Yes, we did.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, the fair operator shall retain at least 12 detail police officers at the discretion of the chief of police. The chief of police, in his reasonable discretion and in consultation with the fair operator, may require that additional or fewer officers be required based on operating conditions and to ensure public safety. The fair operator shall be responsible for reimbursing the town for all detail officers provided.
Motion to approve paragraph 7 as amended.
6, I mean,
7.
All right. Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right. Number 8, the fair operator shall retain the services of the town's Department of Public Works Department. Town's Department of Public
Hold on.
Works.
I think that has been changed.
Okay?
I have the fair operator shall designate one or more managers, at least.
That's not at all what I have.
That's
Yeah.
not in
That's
this.
number 9.
That's a
Well, it's
separate-
actually-
Yeah.
Oh,
That's not-
okay, sorry about that.
That is number
I got
9.
ahead of myself. Okay,
Okay,
sorry,
back
Mr.
to number
Chair.
8?
Yes.
All right. The fair operator shall retain the services of the town's Department of Public Works. I think we can take out that second department in there, for the purpose of setting up and taking down traffic control devices each day. The use of DPW workers shall be subject to an agreement approved by the Select Board, which shall include payment of a reasonable fee for the service. Said agreement shall be in place by July 23rd, 2025, or this license will be null and void.
I'll make a motion to approve as amended paragraph 8 for discussion.
I'll second that with a question for Mr. Cannon.
Okay. Why don't you ask your question first?
Just that the DPW is okay with that, right?
They are okay with that. We're begin discussions with King Richard's Fair about a written agreement that they've never had before, so. There's never been a problem or an issue. They just want to have it in writing, that's all.
Okay, should we add that their approval of that agreement in here?
Well, it will come back to the select
gonna
board,
come back to
approved
the
by the
select
select
board
board,
anyway, so.
they'll have their chance. We'll invite them to the meeting.
Very good.
My question was, why put a date in there? Why don't you just say, subject to the approval of the agreement, period? The date seemed a little odd, because what happens if it's July 24th?
Yeah, I agree either.
Yeah,
Why
so-
do we need that date?
To strike the
Through you,
date.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So the reason I chose that as a deadline date was because that is 1 week before the first day of the fair, right? So that gives you.
No, the first
No?
day is, what is the first day?
August 30th.
August 30th, so what's 1 week before that?
Well, it's July
This is
23rd.
July 23rd.
This says
August
July-
23rd, sorry. Okay, that's a typographical error. It should be August.
So should we amend this to August 23rd?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's reasonable to have that date in there.
Okay. Sorry about that.
All right.
You were just checking to see if we
I
were.
was gonna say, I like the pressure, Mr. Chairman. I like the pressure.
All right, so I'll amend my amendment to replace July with August 23rd.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Ryan?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Ron Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. All right, number 9, the fair operator shall designate one or more managers, at least one of whom shall be on site during all operating hours, and who shall be reachable by the town of Carver's police, fire, and/or EMS at all times.
Motion to approve paragraph 9.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Ryan?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Ron Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. Number 10, the fair operator shall have a sufficient number of its staff present at the site at all times, and the fair operator by and through the designated manager or managers shall exercise supervision and control of all activities occurring on the fair site, including activities of third-party vendors, performers, and attendees, so as to ensure that the fair is operated in a safe and appropriate manner, and the fair operator shall be solely responsible for ensuring compliance with the terms of this license and all applicable laws, as statutes, ordinances, regulations, permits, licenses, orders, and requirements of governmental authorities, and with all requirements of its insurance policies. Nothing herein shall be deemed to waive the obligation of the fair operator.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
so Mr. Chair, I think it should end with obligation of the fair operator and/or any vendor to obtain any other licenses, permits, and approvals required by law.
That
Oh,
was
so that-
Crossed out on my,
Yeah, it was crossed out.
Yeah, I think that was an error.
That was an error?
That should be
Okay.
stated. That should stay it.
okay,
Approve as motion to approve as amended.
okay.
Second. I do have a question.
Yes.
So when it says the fair operator shall have a sufficient number of its staff, that seems a little ambiguous to me, because what does that mean?
Yeah, what's a sufficient number?
What is a sufficient number? I mean, the rest of it's okay, I think, but just saying a sufficient number is really,
So through you, Mr. Chair, and I don't know that the board can sort of say, like, how much staff they should have. I think the intent of this paragraph, is to make it clear that it's up to them to make sure that the fair is being run in an appropriate and safe manner. And so, you know, if things are getting out of control,
Then it comes
right,
back to the board.
and they don't have enough people to prevent, you know, the issue from expanding, then yes, it has to come back from the board, and it's on them, and they can't say, well, you know, we didn't know that this guy was going to pick a fight, or, you know, we didn't know that this other person was going to be overserved. It's their responsibility to step in, and, you know, this isn't directly a liquor license, but the same principle applies, right? If there's, you know, an establishment that has a full-time liquor license, they're responsible for violations that happen, whether they've authorized or known about those violations or not. And, you know, there are ample examples from the ABCC of licenses being suspended for, you know, fights breaking out between third parties that they failed to prevent from happening, or, you know, people from being overserved. So the point here is just that it's on them. And if there are problems, then it either comes back to this board, or they are going to have, you know, other responsibilities at law for any, you know, injuries that might occur there.
Thank you. All right, so,
Would it,
Mr. Ryan?
could you just simply say the fair operator shall exercise supervision and control of all activities occurring on the fair site? Just simple, and does that adequately cover it, do you feel, or does it have to have that sufficient number of staff? Because if they're responsible for exercising supervision and control, it would be up to their, you know, management of that, and if that's not done appropriately, then it comes back to here.
Yeah, again, if they don't exercise appropriate control, then
Yeah, it comes
we're back in
here.
this room talking about suspending a license, so.
Is everybody okay with that amendment?
I think the language that we worked
Is
out.
okay?
I mean,
Okay.
everyone's agreed to it, I think that's good
I-
language.
I just didn't know what sufficient number meant. That's really loose to me. But saying that they're responsible for the supervision and control of all activities is straightforward.
What's the will of the board?
Well,
I think written is pretty good.
Okay.
yeah. And council seems to think it's okay, too.
Yes, I have no issue with that, if that's what you prefer.
No, they're saying they're preferring to leave it the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I have no issue with it either way.
As long as we leave back in that last phrase that was stricken before.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, is there a motion? Have we had a motion?
There was a
Yeah.
motion on it.
Okay, was it seconded?
Yep.
All
And
right.
did it also amend it to add that line back in? That's the
Right.
question.
Yes.
That last line.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Ryan?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Goddard says aye.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, just for
Yes.
clarification, did we leave in sufficient number of staff or no?
We did.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, number 11, the fair operator acknowledges and agrees that the town of Carver and its agents, employees, boards, committees, commissions, volunteers, contractors, and anyone acting on the town's behalf shall not be liable for any injury or death to persons, or for the loss or damage to vehicles, equipment, structures, or other personal property of any nature whatsoever arising out of the operation of the fair and the activities related to this license, except if such injury, death, loss, or damages is caused by the negligence of the town or its employees, agents, contractors, or invitees to the extent permitted by law.
So moved, except I just have a quick question for Mr. Corbo.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All right, go ahead.
Does the contractors, does that include the bus drivers?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know, is the town providing the bus?
There's a,
The town employees, right.
Then
They're-
it should.
okay.
But you're going to have a contract, then you would have to have a contract
Yeah,
with them
with
for
the
that, right?
superintendent, yeah.
But, so I guess we can add,
If I can
Says
just
employees.
interrupt for 1 second. I'm
Sure.
sorry, we do have a contract, it was signed a long time ago, and I did provide Mr. Cannon with it.
Okay,
I do have a copy of the town contract.
Okay.
I know I've sent it to
Right.
Sarah.
I just wanted to make sure this phrase included the bus drivers.
okay.
in my opinion, it would. And, you know, this is really a statement of the law anyways, right? The town, it's just sort of reaffirming, right, that, if someone gets hurt at the fair, it's their responsibility, not the town's.
Okay, great.
They can't come back and say, well, the chief should have had 13 police officers, and now, the town should be held liable. We're saying that's not going to happen.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Okay.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hopkins says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Carver says aye.
All right. Let's see. Number 12. Number 12?
Yeah, 12.
Number 12. Prior to the issuance of this license, the King Richard's Fair LLC shall provide the town with proof of a policy or policies of comprehensive public liability, personal injury, and property damage insurance issued by insurance companies that are duly licensed or authorized to conduct business in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the amounts of $2 million general aggregate, and $1 million on account of one occurrence. The town of Carver shall be named as an additional insured. Such policy or policies shall be kept in full force and effect during the entire term of the fair, and this license shall automatically be terminated if such policy of insurance lapses or is canceled.
Motion to approve paragraph 12.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Oh,
Discussion?
sorry.
Yes.
I believe the name of the entity is King's Fair LLC.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Same on number 13.
Okay.
All right, so motion to approve the amendment for
Second.
King's Fair LLC and the rest of it.
I just have a quick question for the first line prior to issuance of this license. Is that just referring to one, or should we put these licenses?
What's the
Through you, Mr. Chair,
entertainment
we've been
license?
referring to it as one license.
Okay, just,
Okay. Anything else?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Ron Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. Let's see, number 13. So we'll amend that name. King's Fair LLC agrees on behalf of itself, its officers, employees, volunteers, vendors, successors, and assigns to indemnify, defend, or hold harmless the town of Carver and its agents, employees, boards, committees, commissions, or anyone acting on the town's behalf for any injury or death to persons, or for the loss of or damage to vehicles, equipment, structures, or other personal property of any nature whatsoever arising out of the operation of the fair and the activities related to this license, except if such injury, death, loss, or damages is caused by the negligence, willful act, or gross negligence of the town or its employees, agents, contractors, or invitees.
Motion to approve paragraph 13.
I'll second with the following amendment. Agents, employees, boards, committees, commissions, volunteers, contractors, I think should be added as well. Should go with number 11. And anyone acting on the town's behalf, et cetera. It's just using the same language from 11. After the word commissions.
So it's actually after volunteers, right? Is that in here? Oh, so it should say commissions, comma, volunteers.
And contractors.
Contractors, and anyone acting on the town's behalf. Okay.
Okay, motion to approve the amendment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
so the big difference between 11 and this is one
Yes.
specifies King's Fair LLC, and the other says the operator, the fair operator?
Well, it should specify in here that the fair operator, which it doesn't actually,
11 has the fair
is
operator.
King's Fair
So we,
LLC.
through you, Mr. Chair, we do use fair operator throughout, and maybe we can adjust that in the introductory paragraph, that means King's Fair LLC.
Yeah, we should put that in paren, that's the operator.
Okay.
So maybe I'm missing it. What's the difference between 13 and 11?
So in 13, they left out the phrases volunteers, contractors.
Oh, you mean the
So
intent?
through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
So 11 says, town's not responsible for any injuries that occur, but that of course, does not necessarily mean that the town won't be sued for injuries that occur. So what 13 says is that if the town is sued for injuries that occur, the King's Fair LLC agrees to indemnify the town for any, expenses or liability that it has.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Rob Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. 14, the police chief, in consultation with the town administrator and the fair operator, may order that additional safety measures be implemented if he determines that operating conditions necessitate such measures, and any such measures shall be incorporated into the licenses.
I'll make a motion to approve paragraph 14.
I'll second that with a question to the police chief. Chief Dufely, are you okay with the use of the word may instead of shall?
Yes, yeah, yes. I am.
Okay.
I have a question, since we're being super picky about everything. Does fair need to have an E on it?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
she's right.
Now, let's change fair to fair with an E throughout the entire document, okay? All right, we have a motion and a second.
Question, do we want to have all the safety officers, or do we want to just, does it matter whether it's just the police chief, or would it make sense to have,
I think the police chief can consult with the other chiefs, but I'll leave that up to him.
All right, they're okay with it? All right.
If I could, Mr. Chair, I think this is more of a condition on the fly, that they see something that's happening in the field. And I
Okay.
think it's easy to have that one voice of communication.
Well, good. Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Rob Carter says aye.
All right. Number 15, we're getting there. The police chief, in consultation with the town administrator, may summarily suspend or revoke either or both of the licenses for the following operating day based on any failure of the fair operator to comply with the terms of this license, the parking plan, or any other conditions that impose an imminent threat to public health, safety, or welfare, or in the event that the fair operator fails to A, protect employees, patrons, or members of the public inside or outside the premises from disruptive conduct, from criminal activity, from health, safety, or fire hazards, or B, prevent an unreasonable increase in the level of noise in the area caused by the licensed activity or caused by patrons entering or leaving the premises, or C, prevent an unreasonable increase in the level of pedestrian or vehicular traffic in the area of the premises, or an unreasonable increase in the number of vehicles to be parked in the area of the premises.
Motion to approve paragraph 15.
Second with a couple of questions. In the second line, what does for the following operating day? I mean, I think I know what it means. It's on a day-to-day basis. Is that correct?
Well, that's correct, and I know that counsel for the fair has raised some concerns about this summary suspension issue, and we are issuing sort of this one omnibus license for all of the fair days, rather than issuing separate licenses for each day. And so what this basically says is that, so for example, right, if there is, an issue on September 1st, right, then the chief can suspend or revoke the license for the next day.
Clarification?
Yeah.
We've prepared individual licenses for each day.
Okay.
So, I mean,
And I think in a practical manner, Sarah, I think to me what this is really, coming on a Saturday, right? Things are really not going well. Would be planning on suspending the license for the following day, Sunday, right? And then kind of get into 16, and then, to me, we'd have an emergency meeting of the
Okay.
board to have that discussion about the next Saturday coming up.
so I think it should be for the following, for the day following the revocation of the license.
It does say following operating day. I think that's what they intended,
Yeah,
right?
right. And so this is, sort of related to or addresses the issue that we had a couple of years ago, right? Where the traffic was out of control. The public safety chiefs couldn't really manage it. And so, they had to be called in for a hearing. And the idea was that, here, right, if there's a public safety issue, right, the chief should have the ability to say, the fair needs to be shut down until that is addressed. And so, if that means, on September 1st, right, we have a similar, issue with the traffic that the chief feels is not properly controlled, he can then say, okay, you're not going to be allowed to open on September 6th, right, the next operating day. But they will then have an opportunity in the next paragraph to come in for a hearing to hopefully try to straighten things out, just like we did the last time.
Okay. Mr. Hoffman?
I have a question. So may summarily suspend or revoke either or both of the licenses for the following operating day. What is either or both of licenses? Isn't this just the entertainment license?
Yeah, I think that was maybe a carryover. It just should say the license.
The license, yeah.
Okay.
The license or the licenses?
The
We've been
license.
using the single throughout to refer to all of them.
Okay, well, this says an S on the
Yep,
end.
so we can delete that too.
Okay.
I think that was just a holdover from
So I'll
prior
make a
language.
motion to
Okay.
approve the amendment of revoking the license.
Okay. All right,
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Dan
Hearing
Ryan,
none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Goddard says aye.
All right, great, thank you. Number 16, in the event of summary suspension or revocation, the board will endeavor to convene an emergency meeting upon request to review the decision prior to the next weekend, provided that the fair's request is received by the close of business on the following Tuesday.
So there is we didn't talk about the requested language, I think, for this one.
Yes, I think, Mr. Corbo, that requested language at the bottom, what's your thought on that?
So, I don't have so basically, the change would be that in this version, right, it's incumbent upon the fair operator to request the hearing in a timely manner, right? And it says, the following Tuesday, because you have 48 hours, right? So if you received a request on Tuesday, the earliest you could have this hearing would be Thursday.
Right.
And if they want to be able to open over the weekend, it couldn't be any later than that. So that's why that last clause is there.
Okay.
And then with respect to the first clause, I guess the difference would be that they want to require that you have an emergency meeting, whether they request it or not.
Right, and there's no guarantee we could even get a quorum.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know,
Right.
so I would like to stick with the language
All
in the
right,
conditions.
so I'll make a motion to approve paragraph 16 as written.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Oh, Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Goddard says aye.
All right, thank you. Number 17, the board may modify, suspend, or revoke this license for violation of any conditions set forth above, and it reserves all rights at law or in equity to take any action necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare.
Motion to approve paragraph 17.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Goddard says aye.
All right, thank you. Number 18, the fair operator shall retain at least 10 firefighters at the 10 firefighters at the discretion of the fire chief. The fire chief, in his reasonable discretion and in consultation with the fair operator, may require that additional firefighters be added based on operating conditions and to ensure public safety. The fair operator shall be responsible for reimbursing the town for all firefighters provided.
So, Mr. Chair, I think on this one, we agreed
agreed
to
to
the
do that.
requested language.
So if you want to read that one.
I'm
then-
sorry.
We agreed to the blue
Did we? It's been so long.
I think
I
we
know,
did.
yeah.
Okay.
last
All
week.
right, so the amended language. If on any licensed date, traffic conditions related to the fair give rise to an unreasonable increase in the level of pedestrian or vehicular traffic in the area of the fair site, such that the town's public safety services would be impeded, the fire chief may, in his reasonable discretion, call up to an additional 10 firefighters to staff fire stations 1 to 3. The fair operator shall be responsible for reimbursing the town for those additional firefighters.
Motion to approve paragraph 18 as amended.
Second. I just want to make sure the fire chief is okay with this language.
I am.
Okay.
Okay, motion and second, further discussion?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Carl Carver says aye.
All right, thank you. Number 19, the fair operator shall retain at least one emergency medical personnel at the discretion of the emergency medical services chief. The emergency medical services chief, in his reasonable discretion and in consultation with the fair operator, may require that additional emergency medical personnel be added based on operating conditions and to ensure public safety. The fair operator shall be responsible for reimbursing the town for all emergency medical personnel provided.
Motion to approve paragraph 19.
I'll second that, but I wanted to ask town council about the fair's requested language on Article 19.
Yeah, I would defer to the chiefs on this. So, again, the requested language would have the emergency medical person only if there's traffic conditions, and I don't think that was agreeable.
We discussed that earlier.
Yeah, as early as discussed, is we don't use the traffic as a reason for adding staff. We add staff just because the influx of people, because of the, the weather, temperatures, medical calls to the fair, and still be able to handle medical calls within town. So normally we've been doing it like this for many, many years. We've been having both ambulances staffed just to increase our response capabilities because of the increased flow of people into the town. So whether it causes traffic and accidents, whether it causes medical calls at the fair, or whatever, we've always had extra staff on just in case.
Okay, so Chief Brian, you're okay with number 19 as written, the red one?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, anything else? We have a motion and a second.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Oh, John, you're silent.
That was frozen.
You sure look like you're saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay,
now we
okay,
need
do we need a
paragraph 20.
proposed?
Yes.
Condition 20?
Through you, Mr. Chair, proposed paragraph 20. This license shall not take effect unless and until the town's public safety chiefs and the select board approve a professionally prepared parking plan.
Motion to approve the new paragraph 20.
Second.
Could,
All right, motion and a second.
Mr. Corbo, would you read that again, please?
Yep. Okay. This license shall not take effect unless and until the town's public safety chiefs and the select board approve a professionally prepared parking plan.
Great, okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Ryan.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Carl Carver says aye.
All right.
Mr. Chair, before I let you
Yes.
off the hook, I would suggest that the board vote the first introductory paragraph with 2 changes.
Would you like to read your
Yes.
proposed
So it
change?
would say, on July 1, 2025, the Town of Carver Select Board voted to issue weekday and Sunday entertainment licenses to King's Fair LLC,
With an E.
yes, in parentheses, hereinafter referred to as the fair operator, to be exercised at 7 Ida Avenue, Carver, Massachusetts, between 10:30 a.m. and 6 o'clock p.m. on August 31, semicolon, September 1, 6, 7, 13, 14, 20, 21, 27, 28, semicolon, October 4, 5, 11, 12, 13, 18, and 19, 2025, hereinafter collectively referred to as the license, subject to site plan approval by the planning board and the following conditions which shall be incorporated into and be part of said license.
All right,
Motion to approve the amendment to the introductory paragraph of the license.
Second that.
we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, through you, I
Yes.
think it should be a motion to approve the introductory paragraph as amended.
Oh, as
Yes.
amended. Sorry, I'll change it to as amended.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Ryan.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right.
Mr. Chair, can I ask one more question
Yeah, I
before we
think you
lose
did.
Mr. Corbo?
I mean, you could.
We're not going to lose them yet, but go ahead.
Okay, so, Mr. Corbo, going back to condition 1, please tell us again why you're okay with that line. Because we're asking them to do another,
That was the traffic
I
plan.
understand.
Correct,
I'm
right,
asking
so-
Mr. Corbo.
As discussed by the town administrator, right, we have a traffic control plan document, which I believe that you approve of and that the chiefs approve of, but you have this other plan that relates only to parking that still needs more work. So we refer separately now to this parking plan that is in paragraph 20.
Thank you. I just wanted that clear for the audience. Thank you.
All right.
So we've made a motion for every one of the paragraphs. Do you need a motion to approve the entire
I
license?
believe we do.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the entertainment license, subject to the conditions of 20 paragraphs.
Second that?
All right. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Ryan.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right, great. Thank you. Now, we have the discussion and possible vote for the application of one-day special liquor licenses, wine and malt only, for Renaissance Foods LLC, 7 Eda Ave, from 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on August 30th, 31st, September 1st, 6th, 7th, 13th, 14th, 20th, 21st, 27th, 28th, October 4th, 5th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 18th, and 19th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for the one-day special liquor licenses as listed in the...
Well, that's okay. You
Mr. Corbo.
I guess let's have that be seconded, if anyone
I'll second that.
chooses.
Motion and a second.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, I just had one clarification on the license application. It says there's a space for tip certification information, all tips trained server certifications, and they wrote with 2 big stars next to it, will be available after the tips course. Can we ask for an explanation of that?
Yes.
So we don't start hiring till we usually used to open our offices at the end of July. We start hiring, once we have hired the bartenders, then they go through a tips training course. And that is usually 1 to 2 weeks prior to opening, when we have our orientation, et cetera. And then I just need to mention one thing also while we're talking about this. The serving times of the adult beverages is from 11 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., not 11:30.
I'm sorry, I thought I said 11 to 5:30.
Oh,
That's where it's written.
Wait, I have 10:30 to 6.
we're open 10:30 to 6. We start serving a half an hour after opening, and we stop serving a half an hour prior to closing.
Okay, so that should say 11 to 5:30?
Yes, please.
I thought that's what I read, but I
Yeah.
certainly intended to read it, so.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
the one
then
you
I'm
read
good.
as it said.
Okay.
Then my bad, sorry.
Does
Nope,
say
it's
11
okay.
to 5:30.
5:30.
Mr. Chair, could I?
11
add?
to 5:30, yeah. Yes.
Could I add something? So I just to speak to the tips-trained bartenders. We have an excellent working relationship with them. They work very well. We have in the past identified people that have been underage and dealt with them appropriately. So I'm very confident that they do a good job at training their people and working with our people to handle that. So I just wanted to add that into it.
And so, Mr. Chair, for clarification, on the town's website, there's a checklist that this approval, if you give it, should be subject to, which is that tip certifications, which we've just addressed, but they would need to be provided to you. I don't know if you want to provide a deadline for that. And then the liquor liability insurance, which I believe, have you already given that?
I have, it renews on the 27th of August, so you will get a new updated one, and it'll additionally serve the, town.
Thank you. So maybe through you, Mr. Chair, or to you and/or the board members, do you want to add a deadline for the tips?
I think we used a deadline earlier in some of the conditions of a week before the fair
before,
opens.
okay.
Would that work? Would that work for you folks?
It is also something where if there is anybody new hired throughout the season, that they would take that tips course. So obviously, whatever people are in place to serve will be tip certified when we open, and you would have access to those.
Yeah. Any issue with that, Mr. Corbo? If someone new is hired, then, no.
Right, yeah, as long as they go through the training, that's, yep.
Mr. Ryan?
The license says all tips trained servers certifications will be available after the tips course by August 23rd.
Okay.
So there is a date of August 23rd listed on the application.
Okay.
Our food and beverage director, who is also here with us, said that that should not be a problem.
Okay. So do we need to amend the motion?
So,
Subject to the checklist, or?
yeah, I mean, really, I think the only thing left is, right, yeah, subject to, providing the tip certifications by August 23rd, and new tip certification as new employees are hired.
All right, so I'll make a motion to amend to the 23rd and new certifications be provided.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Ryan?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. Next, we have a discussion and possible vote for an application for common victualler license for Renaissance Foods LLC.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. We have a discussion of possible vote for an application for Sunday entertainment license for King's Fair LLC.
So is that different than the entertainment license we just voted on?
So, Mr. Chair, through
Yes.
you, I would suggest that the motion be to approve, subject to the same conditions as the weekday entertainment license.
So I'll make a motion to approve the Sunday entertainment license subject to the same conditions as the weekday entertainment license.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, discussion?
So I have a question.
Yes.
So what we voted on, order of the select board conditions on weekday and Sunday entertainment licenses. Says it, that's what we
Says
just
it in there,
approved,
that's
right?
what we voted.
Says weekday and Sundays?
I think just to make it clear, I would
Yeah.
suggest that be part of the motion.
All right.
So do we have to do a weekday license one as well? Discussion, possible vote?
I think you've already approved the weekday license with the summary
we did.
vote that was
Yeah.
taken at the end.
It's also next on the agenda.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Well, when we got there, I was gonna ask a question. I thought we already did that.
Yeah, I
but-
think we do too.
Yeah.
We did.
Okay.
So there's a motion for the Sunday.
Well, we could do it like a motion to actually approve the licenses themselves, is that?
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah,
We
okay,
did.
we can do that next. Let's do
right.
the Sunday one.
Okay. Is there a motion on the Sunday?
There was a motion on the Sunday, subject to the same
And a
conditions as the weekday.
Mr. Ryan?
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
Okay, and Mr. Carter, you feel we should have Mr. Corbo, I'm sorry, you think we should do the entertainment license as well? Okay, is there
All
a
right.
motion?
So I'll make a motion to approve the application for the entertainment license,
Second.
subject to the same conditions as the previous voted.
All right, we have a motion and
Subject to
a
the
second.
same conditions of the weekday licenses.
Yes,
That
Second.
is the weekday license.
I know.
I would say subject to the conditions we previously approved, because they're,
Okay,
this is the weekday license.
Okay.
all right.
All right, we have a motion and a second, Sarah?
Yes.
A second, okay. Discussion. Hearing none.
Dan Ryan says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right. Thank you very much. That concludes our business with King Richard's Fair, at least for the time being. Thank you for bearing with us.
Thank
We are
you.
going to take a 5-minute recess at this point, and we'll be back. All right, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. We are going to go into our joint meeting now with the planning board. This is a joint meeting. Just joint meeting with the planning board for discussion and possible vote on a potential MBTA zoning article. Ms. Sordillo, if you could join us.
And we've got Mary Ellen on speaker.
I believe Mary Ellen Williams is here
Yes.
on speakerphone. Mary Ellen, you with us?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you.
She's the chair.
I know she is. So, Mary Ellen, am I correct? You're the chair, Ms. Sordillo is the vice chair, but since you're not joining us in person you're going to ask Ms. Sordillo to chair the planning board meeting this evening, am I correct?
Absolutely, Mr. Townsend. My apologies for not attending in person. I will ask Madam Vice Chair to chair the Planning Board joint meeting with the Select Board in my absence.
All right, no worries, thank you. Ms. Sordillo, would you like to call your board to order?
Yes. So I'd like to call the meeting to order.
If you could just use the microphone. Yeah.
Call the meeting to order this evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all good?
Yeah.
All right, so, again, this is a joint meeting with the planning board to
So, Mr. Chair, could I
Yes.
just procedurally?
Sure.
I suggest that the select board make a motion to recess its meeting until after the joint meeting with the planning board?
Oh, okay. All right, is there a motion to recess the select board meeting?
So moved.
And reconvene after the planning board meeting? We have a
So moved.
motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, we don't need a roll call.
No. Mr. Corbo, a
So
procedural
I'm sorry,
question.
so was that unanimous? Everyone said yes?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Do we need a roll
Procedural
call?
question
No, because
going,
John's gone.
procedural question going forward. So the select board is here. We have no one remote, but the planning board does have a member remote. So does that mean any motions or votes taken by any of us need to be in a roll call vote? Or would you suggest that?
I guess at this point, I'm not 100% sure, like, what votes will be taken. We may want to
I don't know if any will happen, but
I would suggest that, if a vote is going to be taken to avoid any issue, just make it a roll call vote.
okay, that's fine.
Okay.
So,
All right, so now, Mr. Chair, sorry, I suggest that the select board open its joint meeting with the planning board.
okay, I'll call the select board joint meeting with the planning board to order. All right. I guess going forward, I know this is a very controversial subject, and I just want to take a couple of minutes at the start of the meeting to make everyone here and at home aware of why we're having this meeting, why we're here, why we're having the meeting, and why we're having it right now. So, Mr. Corbo, if you could just update us on where we are legally. I've heard from a lot of residents that, quite frankly, they think we should be acting through the courts on this, and just if you could let us know the status.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, good evening. My name is Greg Corbo, Town Council for the Town of Carver. I just wanted to sort of provide a legal framework of where we stand at this point in time. I believe most people at the table probably know, but other people watching may not. So, we're dealing with this issue of the so-called MBTA Zoning Act, which is part of the Massachusetts General Laws, and it is in Chapter 40A, Section 3A, and it provides, in most relevant part, that every so-called MBTA community is required to create at least one zoning district that is of reasonable size and can accommodate at least 15 units per acre of multifamily housing as of right. So that's part of the general laws. Also part of that, the legislature required that the department, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, enact guidelines to implement the requirements of the act. Now, under the statute, the town of Carver is considered an MBTA community. So that's something that is just part of the general laws. And in, I guess, January of this year, as part of an enforcement action brought by the Attorney General against the town of Milton for not complying with the HLC guidelines, the Supreme Judicial Court held that the statute is constitutional and enforceable by the Attorney General, but it held that the regulations of HLC were not properly enacted, and it nullified those guidelines at the time. So after that, HLC came back and it issued new emergency regulations, and then ultimately permanent regulations. And under those regulations, the town of Carver is considered or classified as an adjacent small town. And I forget what the exact specifications are, but by virtue of you being an adjacent small town, and based on the overall number of housing units that you have, according to the regulations, the town is required to enact a zoning bylaw that would allow up to, or at least 235 units of multifamily housing at a rate of 15 units per acre. So after those regulations came out, the Massachusetts State Auditor issued a decision in response to complaints by several municipalities, and the state auditor concluded that the MBTA Zoning Act constitutes an unfunded mandate in violation of another provision of Massachusetts law, which basically requires that as part of Proposition 2.5, because municipalities are limited in how much they can raise by taxation each year, that if the legislature is going to impose a mandate that requires direct service and cost obligations on municipalities, then those obligations have to be funded by vote of the legislature in the same session as it approves the statute. So here, there was no such appropriation, and in response to the auditor's decision, a number of municipalities challenged the statute, Chapter 40A, on the grounds that it constitutes an unfunded mandate. In addition, several towns challenged the HLC regulations as being unreasonable as applied to them because they didn't account for the unique circumstances of each particular community. So initially, there were 8 towns that filed suit and sort of got consolidated before one single judge, Judge Gilday of the Plymouth Superior Court. As that was going on, I was working with the town of Carver to file its own lawsuit to challenge the act, both on the grounds of unfunded mandate, as well as on the grounds that the regulations did not take into account Carver's unique circumstances, in particular the fact that it does not have public water or sewer for the most part, that most of the town, or at least more than 50% of the town, is protected cranberry bog land, and that the town's water supply is a fragile resource. So we filed that, and literally days later, the judge on the other 8 cases issued a decision denying all of the prior requests for preliminary injunction to extend the enforcement deadline, and dismissing all of their claims, both with respect to the unfunded mandate issue and specific challenges to the regulations. The judge specifically finding that the way that HLC wrote the regulations reasonably took into account each community's unique circumstances. So after that ruling was issued, the select board voted to withdraw the lawsuit, but reserving its rights to file litigation again in the future should circumstances change. So there were, I believe, 2 municipalities have now filed appeals to the appeals court. Those will likely take a substantial amount of time to wind their way through. In the meantime, the town of Carver has a deadline of December 31st to create the required zoning district. And so, legally speaking, this is now a binding obligation on you that the Supreme Judicial Court has already held that the statute is constitutional and enforceable. If by some reason the appeals court or the SJC reverses and finds that there's an unfunded mandate here, Carver could always reinstitute its claim to the extent that it's necessary. But the question of the unfunded mandate does not absolve you of having to comply with the law, right? It just means that if it's found to be an unfunded mandate, the mandate has to be funded by the legislature. In my opinion, that question being answered is far off at best, and again is really subject to legislative control. On the regulations themselves, I mean, as you know, when your own regulations are challenged, right, we argue that they are entitled to a presumption of validity, and there's a high burden. And I don't think that there is a high likelihood of success on those appeals, but you never know. But in the meantime, again, right, if the court were to send it back and say, yes, the regulations are unreasonable, all that's going to mean, again, is that HLC is going to enact new regulations in accordance with whatever instructions come down from the courts. So based on that legal premise, and where we stand right now, right, is that the law is in place, it's been declared valid and enforceable, and we know for sure that the Attorney General has taken aggressive enforcement stances in the past. Starting with Milton, right, they initiated a lawsuit and were seeking to have a special master appointed to create their zoning if the town would not do it itself. We also know that even after the SJC's decision, the town of Middleborough was swiftly punished for not submitting an action plan by its February deadline, by the loss of grants, including grants for school purposes. So, the consequences of not meeting the December 31st deadline are real. And so, I understand that there are serious objections both by people at this table and members of the community at large, and I was prepared to advance those specific interests on your behalf, but based on the decision that was made by the court, I couldn't in good conscience tell you to continue to pursue that litigation only to have you spend money to get the same result, because all those cases were kind of dismissed in the same manner, and the same types of claims that were being asserted by Carver were being asserted by other communities. Their specific circumstances were different, but they too had environmental concerns that conflicted with the act. Some of them also were very far removed from MBTA, facilities, but that's an issue for the legislature to deal with at this point. And so I guess the question for you now is, you have until December 31st to prepare a compliant zoning bylaw and have it be approved at town meeting. The question is, how do you want to proceed in light of where the law stands today?
Thank you, Mr. Corbo. And Mr. Cannon, to you, we've heard Mr. Corbo say that we have till December 31st to comply, but there's a little more urgency to what's going on in Carver right now, and can you explain why we need to perhaps move a little faster?
Sure. So we have re-engaged with the Cranberry Point folks about a pilot agreement. I will discuss that when we reconvene in more detail. We do think that pilot agreement is going to be wrapped up and ready for a special town meeting mid-September. I think we're probably identifying September 22nd, I believe the date is a Monday, for a special town meeting with approval of that pilot. And special town meetings, they could cost money, and so we'd like to join these two things together. And we don't want to have a special town meeting and have to turn around and have another special town meeting to approve the MBTA zoning if there is an article to approve.
That makes sense. I mean, the cost is extraordinary, and we have to get everyone together, and it would make sense to try to get that done. So, Mr. Bott, could you talk a little bit? I know this is not a public hearing, but I do know that people are going to want to have their voices heard if an article is indeed brought forward. Can you just explain a little bit how the public hearing process works, and if the planning board was to bring forward an article, how that would operate?
So if planning board and the select board are both able to submit zoning articles. So if the planning board were to vote to submit a zoning article, we would take about 30 days to open a hearing. So based on likely having that discussion with the board at a meeting next week, that would be a potential opening of a hearing on July 29th. There are regular planning board meeting dates of the 19th and the 12th and the 26th. There could also be another hearing date for the 19th, because you don't want to just try to jam this into one night. Based on a model bylaw that the Commonwealth has provided and the services that we can render, avail ourselves of free of charge through the statute. So we could hire a consulting planning firm to help the town develop a bylaw with a hearing that would likely open July 29th and continue over a series of planning board meetings. with a September 22nd special town meeting. The town has to post the warrant 14 days beforehand. So the planning board's work would likely be done right about that same time, 1st of September, over a series of meetings. But from that time, if we pull the trigger and say, yes, we'd like to do this, about 21, 30 days to hold a hearing.
Thank you. So obviously, there is no article now, but I think the reason we're all coming together and is to discuss whether or not we want to bring an article forward to town meeting. And time is of the essence for a number of reasons, and I think that's why we're here. So at that point, I'll open it up for a general discussion, and we can move forward. Anyone?
Okay.
What are the thoughts, Mr. Ryan? Do you have
I think it makes sense to at least move forward. I mean, given what I'm hearing about, other towns have tried to, appeal, and it just seems like at least we should have everything in order, at least start the process to say if we were to comply, how would we do it, where would we do it, and all that. So I think at least we should start doing the planning of this, because I can't see, the town having negative consequences if we don't go forward. It seems like it's a positive thing, at least to start planning and see how it plays out.
So it was like pretty slim that an appeal would go through.
Please use the microphone.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
You said chances are pretty slim, right, that the appeal.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair and Madam Chair. Well, yeah, I mean, generally speaking, right, there's something like 10% of appeals succeed, right? But that's not zero. But the likelihood of it being resolved by December 31st, I can tell you, is slim to none.
And I think one of the things to consider is, and I know how I feel, I think this is a horrible law. I think it was a mistake to ever put this forward, and I hate the idea of the state trying to impose its will upon cities and towns. But that being said, there are substantial penalties to the town for not complying, and I think we need to give the town as a whole, meaning town meeting, the chance to vote on it. Because I just think it would be, to see those penalties enacted on the town and not having given the town a chance to vote on it is a mistake. So.
Chairman Townsend, I'm just wondering, what are the penalties? Are they, do you have more specifics on what those penalties are?
Mr. Bott, do you have the penalties for not complying? I know there's a number of grants. And am I wrong? Hasn't the state almost gotten to the point now where they've conditioned just about every grant on compliance with the MBTA Communities Act? It started off with just a few, but I think it's just about everyone now, isn't it?
Yes. Initially, there were 13 grants. I believe it's now likely just about every discretionary grant, and town council can confirm that.
Yes, I can confirm. We had the list that we put in our court pleadings. I don't recall specifically what they are, but I mean, basically anything that, is not like mandatory school aid or mandatory Chapter 90 funds could be at risk. Anything that is discretionary, the state has made it very clear that they are going to look at whether or not you are MBTA zoning compliant, plus the added risk that you will be sued by the Attorney General, and they will seek the appointment of a special master to tell you what your zoning is going to be. And so here, believe me, I fully understand your position, Mr. Townsend. I've been living this, right, for most of this year. But you do still have some level of control here, which you completely surrender if you do nothing and they appoint this special master.
And that's the worst case scenario, right? That they appoint a special master and they come in and tell you what to do. I'm sorry, Ms. Ewens.
Yeah, thank you. So I agree with Mr. Townsend. This method of trying to get affordable housing or just more housing into towns by shoving it down our throats is the exact wrong method. I think they did it with 40Bs, and they're doing it again. I think there are other ways to do it. Having said that, since I'm not in the legislature and can't do anything about that, I also agree with Mr. Corbo that having the location, if we have to have a location, let's have it where we want it. Let's put it up somewhere where there's already things there. that will make it even harder for someone to actually build it, or where it's a site that's completely out of the way. Why put ourselves in the position of having someone tell us where to put these homes? I mean, all the options are bad. I get that. They all are. But at least having the control over where it goes is really key. And then what it looks like and what the traffic, I mean, the planning board has a lot of control if this thing comes up for a site plan review. I mean, fingers crossed it won't, but it could. And I just prefer always for the town to have control of projects that come to town, period. So.
I want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
excuse me, I would also like to add that I agree with you completely. I do not like this law, as most people have been saying. I just think it is very important that we leave this in the control of the townspeople, and I was against this initially and didn't want to hear any of it, but to know that the state could come forward and, like Ms. Hewen said, is just, put this thing wherever they want it to. That's what's scary. So we need to protect the town and allow the townspeople to come out and vote on this. And like you said, I don't support this at all, but they're forcing our hand, unfortunately.
Yep, I agree.
Mr. Shea?
Agree.
Yes, I think this is going to be financially devastating, not only to the town, but to the residents in terms of taxes, services, and there's really one way in and one way out of the town of Carver, and it's going to cause serious problems, but I've said it before. I do believe that the townspeople should be the ones to vote on it, and I will tell you that site review by the planning board will be very limited on a by right project through the state. And not only that, I think we have to look at, well, personally I feel that the term special master really denotes how the state feels about the communities that are going to be affected by this. I think it says a lot. So I've said it before, the planning board should move forward with it and allow the town to decide, because it's them that's going to suffer the consequences.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask Mr. Bott a question? This may be, I think it's the number of units and the number of units per acre that's allowed by right, correct? But the planning board still has a fair amount of discretion about parking?
Yes, so
et cetera?
235 units at 15 dwelling units per acre are the basic tenets of the zoning. Where they're at and how they're situated within the planning board's existing regulations, they can regulate that as far as access easements for fire, police, and things like that. But the thing that you can't do is you cannot create, if you don't have design review in your town already, you can't create a design review element of this, as far as I know, and we'll confer with our consultants about that. But you can't sort of juice your regs specifically for this. So the limitations, as Connie pointed out, site plan review for something by right is what are in the regulations, and how much to that effect can we tweak those regulations in conjunction with an MBTA zoning bylaw moving forward to a special town meeting. Can we amend our site plan regulations in addition to the MBTA? And those will be questions we'll have with town council and a consultant if we move forward with this and we decide to bring one on. The good news is there's not a lot new under the sun at this point of the game. A lot of things have been tried, a lot of things have been suggested. So we've got a pretty good idea of what the playbook is moving forward. In addition, the Commonwealth will review your bylaw prior to you voting at a town meeting to tell you, yes, this passes muster with the Attorney General prior to you having a vote. So we have those options to look at.
But if I may, so that the planning board still controls, for example, stormwater runoff.
Absolutely.
The number of parking spaces, how the frontage, how the building looks, whether it has a cupola or...
I don't know about how it looks because that's a design issue.
Okay.
It's where they're at and how they're massed.
Okay, and how they're managed.
You can, under the zoning, have less massing at the street. So let's say that we're putting this on Tremont Street. So you could have an area where there were smaller, shorter buildings on the front, and then larger buildings towards the back, so the effect from the street, the curb appeal looks more like, doesn't have that sort of massing that a larger building might have. So you can stage that, from the front to the back, as long as the overall net effect for the district is 15 dwelling units per acre.
And through you, Madam Chair, the other thing is that, this is just a zoning district, right? So someone would still have to comply with, the Wetlands Protection Act, if that's applicable, Title V, get stormwater controls.
That's what I wanted to know.
Any
Okay.
other applicable law that would apply to any other, building or development in the town would still apply, just like any other, zoning requirement, right? You have to come in and you have to meet all the requirements of the law in order to be able to build something. So, if this is in an area where, they don't have, access to, a sufficient means of septic disposal, they would not be able to build something. Or, if the site had wetlands and they couldn't fit enough units, right, that would not be able to be built. So you're not waiving any other laws. All you're doing is creating a district. Most towns have called it like an overlay district on top of what they already have. But that's, just one of the options that would be available.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had at least that kind of control, because that's a big deal.
And if I may, the statute requires the town to create zoning. It doesn't require it to create infrastructure. So any developer who comes in is going to have to figure out, how do I get a municipal water supply? How do I develop a wastewater treatment plant? And the cost associated with that. Those costs are borne on the developer. And any developer is going to have to look at their spreadsheet and say, it's going to cost me X for a plant. It's going to cost me X for a well. How much do I get from the units? Am I going to be able to, is it going to make sense for me? And as I've said before, in an environment where there are 100 plus towns that have the zoning in place, where is there going to be a bullseye on target on Carver's back for someone to say, oh, let's build there right away, because they'd have to provide all those things.
Right.
They would likely be looking at other places that have that infrastructure in place, because the zoning requires you to create zoning but not build infrastructure. That is the realm of the developer, and they have to figure out how that math works for them.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoffman?
So I have a question. So if we do agree to put an article on the town meeting.
You need your mic, probably.
Oh.
Just in case.
Sorry. That if we do agree to put an article for town meeting, or for the special town meeting, and then town meeting rejects it, we're still in the same boat, because we won't have a district and we'll be subject to the grants being taken away, things like that, correct?
That is correct, yes. So, this is, like I said, the court has found that it's an enforceable law, and, in Milton, it was not only, it was in town meeting, it was a townwide referendum voted not to do it, and they were still subject to enforcement. And, obviously, this is unprecedented, right, for even a court to issue an order that says, town meeting, you have to do something, right? We see all kinds of orders to towns that you can't do something, but there are very few precedents. I found one which occurred during World War II, and a town refused to I think, fluoridate its water or something like that. And even then, the Supreme Judicial Court said, well, this law is enforceable, but I'm going to send it back to town meeting with the, confidence that they are going to meet their obligations under the law. And I don't know, it never went any further than that, but that was in the 1940s. That was the last example I could find.
The good news is, I think there are still some bills pending before the legislature that specifically exempt towns that don't have public water supplies. And I really hope that they act positively on those, but I'm not holding out a lot of hope.
Right.
Is there anything else from anybody?
So how do we move forward?
Well, I think the best way to move forward, and I'll ask Mary Ellen or Ellen, do you think the planning board at this point would be able to work on your meetings to try to craft an article?
I think we could, yeah. Absolutely, for the best interest of the town.
And I guess keep when you're talking about it, and I understand that none of us are enthusiastic about this. This is really, I think, someplace we didn't want to be. But here we are. And just keep in mind when working toward that there is some time urgency on this, because we do have a special town meeting looming in late September, and I don't think it's a good thing for the town to have multiple special town meetings, especially one after another. I mean, this one would have to be handled before December 31st, so it's a lot of expense for the town. I think we're better off trying to get it all done at the same town meeting as long as we can do that. So, does anyone else?
I would agree.
Yeah. Does anyone else, Mr. Cannon, do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bott?
Well, only that the agenda noted discussion and possible vote. So would town council request that each board vote to say they would support or move a town meeting, something to that effect, that to basically give the official marching orders that we're moving forward with this? I understand we're sort of at that point by acclamation.
Well, it's just, I don't want to interrupt, but I would feel uncomfortable with the select board giving marching orders to the planning board to do something. I don't know if that's necessarily
vote in support of an article.
Appropriate.
Yeah, so through you both chairs. So I think from the planning board perspective, right, you, I don't know how to phrase this more politely, but you supervise Mr. Bott, right? And I think
It's a
that,
handful.
yes, that he would benefit from you taking a vote as to whether or not you want him to proceed to put together a bylaw.
The planning board.
The planning board,
Yeah.
correct. Right, because it won't get to the select board until it's time to put it on a warrant. And I don't know that the select board could really commit to that until they see it.
Well, and that's another point.
Right,
but-
but here again, it's just to sort of give the planner marching orders, do you want him to do this? Are you willing to proceed with the process? Or, do you want to just say, no, we're willing to roll the dice here?
And to clarify, that's from a policy perspective, not from my day-to-day operations.
No, that's correct. It is a policy decision for the board to make, and that's why I'm suggesting the vote. Yes.
So would you suggest a motion to, I don't know, to authorize Mr. Bott to prepare an article? Would that be?
I personally think that's out of line. I think it's up to the planning board, and the planning board has shown considerable interest in moving forward with this, and it's their responsibility. And again, we're already dealing with a special master at this point, so I don't think we need to be under any further onus in regards to moving forward with this.
Yeah, again, I'm not talking about the select board I'm talking about the planning board.
Yeah.
I think
With a motion.
the members here, the vice chair, Ms. Sardillo, our chairman, and myself have already mentioned the willingness to move forward in it, and I expect that that's how it's going to proceed.
Mr. Ryan?
How do you usually have articles prepared? Do you usually take a vote to get it done, or do you just usually just ask Mr. Bott to put it together and then it comes to the board? What's your process for, I guess, asking Mr. Bott to do an article?
Yeah, so-
Is it informal or is it formal?
Looking back to why we're here tonight,
Yeah.
when it was time for the warrant to close, and we had a list of, here are the articles we'd like to put on the warrant, the planning board voted several to put on the warrant and voted not to put this one on the warrant. So with that same sort of rationale, I think you'd have a vote to say, yes, the planning board would like to propose an article for a special town meeting to put on the warrant.
Would the planning board do that at a meeting, though? That's my question.
I expect that the planning board will resurrect the article that was voted down previously and move forward with that. But that's just my expectation.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I agree with Connie on that.
Mary Ellen, anything to add?
I unfortunately feel like our back is up against the wall, and I just want to do what's right for the town, and I agree with a lot of Mr. Shea's comments, and I don't think we're left with any options but to come up with an article and present it at town meeting, special town meeting, and that's just the responsibility that we have right now, because I don't want anyone in the town to suffer because the state is going to come in because of, our lack of putting something together under a deadline. I don't want to hold that responsibility at all.
All right, Mr. Cannon, could I just ask you to work with Mr. Bott to make sure the timeline fits so that we don't end up with hopefully don't end up with multiple special town meetings.
Yes, yes, we
And
can definitely
just
do
sort
that.
of keep us in the loop on
Yes.
where we're at. Does anyone have anything else to add this evening?
No, I think that says it all.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion to adjourn your meeting and reconvene in meeting room 4?
Yes. I will adjourn this meeting, and...
I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting and reconvene
Okay,
in room 4.
I'll second that.
okay.
I think you need a roll call vote because you have a
Oh,
remote,
okay.
you have a member on.
Curtis Lake says aye.
Mr. Shea says aye.
Alan Sedillo says aye.
Mary Ellen Williams says aye.
All
Yes.
right.
Did she have it? Okay.
Yep, so the planning board is
Will
adjourned.
you have ability to get her on the line in room 4?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I may just make an announcement while we're still here on TV, is that in the discussions we had prior to convening this meeting with the applicant for Edaville, presently on the planning board's
No,
agenda.
I don't know that that's...
Well,
Okay.
all
right, yeah, I guess, go ahead. All
Yeah,
right.
so presently on the planning board's agenda
Yeah.
is Edaville, and the applicant is asking for a continuance until July 10th. I just don't want anybody running out of their house to come to talk about Edaville in room 4. So we're going to
Understood.
have a very brief procedural meeting in the planning board in room 4, and we'll be talking about Edaville again on July 10th.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Brown. And is a notice posted on this door that you're in room 4? Or can someone post a notice on this door that they're in room 4? Thank you.
I will entertain a
Thanks,
motion
everyone.
from the select board to adjourn from our joint meeting and reconvene in our regular meeting in open session.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hang up over there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hit it again. There you go.
There you go. Look at that.
Mr. Chair, do you need me here for anything else?
I don't think we do, Mr. Cannon. Do you see anything on the agenda that we need?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he wants to leave.
You're picking up the pizza.
Oh, sure.
We neglected to put that in the town administrator's contract.
We're gonna
The
add
next
that.
contract will have a codicil.
Well, it's going to be in the new town administrator
Over
goals.
3 hours, you're entitled to food. All right.
All right, thanks, everyone. It was good.
Thank
to see
you.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, that's all. I'll call the meeting back to order, the regular session of the select board. And the next item on our agenda is an update on the Cranberry Point Battery Storage Facility Pilot Agreement.
And I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman. The assessor did give me an update. The Board of Assessors has retained the services of Gary McCabe and George Sansucci to assist them in the evaluation of this project. The site visit with their evaluation consultants, the town assessor, and members of the Board of Assessors is scheduled for July 30th, 2025. Evaluation information will be provided to the town shortly following the site inspection. The language of the pilot agreement remains unchanged and has already been exchanged between the board's counsel and Cranberry Point. This will allow the town and Cranberry Point to quickly finalize an agreement in anticipation of a proposed September special town meeting. And just to remind the board and the folks at home, we actually had a pilot agreement ready to go for our annual town meeting with Cranberry Point. For whatever reason that was not disclosed, they decided to pull that article. But now that we re-engaged with them, and we believe we're going to be ready for a special town meeting. Most of the detail work has already been done.
And again, that's the driver for our special town meeting. That has to be approved at a special
Correct.
town meeting. So, any questions on that?
No.
All right. So we'll move on to a discussion and possible vote on our select board and town administrator goals for fiscal year 2026. I think before we do that, we should actually handle the second item, which was a discussion of ranking of the select board and town administrator goals. I think we agreed at the last meeting that we felt they should be ranked, but
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Some of you felt that way.
Okay. Well, I guess the question is, did a majority of us feel that way? And I'll leave that up to the board. I certainly think they should be ranked, but
I just have a quick question. So I know I wasn't at the last meeting, and Mr. Cotter isn't at this meeting. Is something we should wait for a full board, or?
we could. I guess the question is, when is the next time we would have a full board? Probably our first meeting in August. Is that correct? Do we know of anyone that was not able to make that meeting in August? August 6th?
August 5th, I wanna say.
For the 5th? thought it was the 6th, but it could be the 5th.
Let me just double check real quick.
Let's all look at our phones at the
I
same
think I'm
time.
available.
I thought, don't remember anyone saying they weren't available, but then, at the time we scheduled that, that was a if-needed meeting.
Correct.
I guess
Yeah.
August 5th is the date.
Yeah, I have it in my calendar.
I think we're gonna need it now.
Okay.
So I certainly think, the reason I put it off till tonight was I thought we should have a whole board to do it. So I certainly would feel comfortable doing that if people don't think that that's too far to put the goals off. Everyone
I'm
okay with August
that.
5th?
Sure.
Okay, so let's move those.
I'll be out of town, but I can do it remote.
You can?
Good.
Okay. All right, so let's move those, both agenda items to August 5th. So that will bring us to a town administrator update.
I'll try to go fairly fast. Mr. Chairman, just so the board is aware, we actually have received our annual street listing. I think it's always a thing to see. This year, I notice it is electronic. So it should be distributed to the board. I think it's a very handy document for many people to have. And again, if you want to look for an electronic copy of that, please let the town clerk know and they can send one over to you.
All right.
I do know that, I'm sure the board will mention this in their parting remarks, but if Friday is July 4th, Town Hall will be closed. I do just want to remind you that even though the town of Carver does not have a parade, we are well representative with our fire department in the Plymouth Parade on July 4th, beginning I think at 9 a.m., and then the Duxbury Parade again on July 4th, starting at 2 p.m. So again, we don't have our own, but we will be well represented. And then the last thing I have, and again, I did get a chance to drive by the pickleball courts, is it yesterday morning? Very early in the morning, I want to say 8 a.m., and there are already 3 of the 4 courts in action, so it seems to be getting a good use on it. I know it's a very warm day, so I'm not sure how late they go in the afternoon, but in the morning, it'll be quite popular. That's all I have, Mr.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cannon. Let's see, we have the approval of the minutes of June 17th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 17, 2025.
All right,
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Unanimous, thank you. Approval of the executive session minutes of June 10th, 2025 for release.
I'll make a motion to approve the executive session minutes of June 10, 2025 for release.
For
Okay.
release.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And finally, we have the approval of the executive session minutes of June 17th, 2025, not for release.
I'll make a motion to approve the executive session minutes of June 17, 2025 not for release.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It is unanimous, thank you. Which brings us to select board announcements. Ms. Hewens.
Oh, thank you. I'd just like to wish everyone a happy, safe 4th of July. And I also would ask that people please remember Shane Gives Thanks, our food pantry. They are in need at every time of year, and they are available for everyone in need, particularly our veterans.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman?
I'd like to wish everyone a happy and safe 4th of July as well. Hopefully the weather cooperates.
Absolutely.
It is
Thank
going
you.
to.
It's not on a Saturday, so that means it won't rain.
You're right.
Mr.
Okay,
Ryan?
same here. I'd like to wish everyone a happy and safe 4th of July. Also remind people that Old Home Day, I think they're starting to sell tickets for the clam bake, and that's going to be the last Saturday in July, so just a reminder of that. And then the farmer's market has been going pretty well on Sundays. Be good to see more people. And then I did have the meeting on the airport advisory, so the topic that came out is just to let everybody know, I guess the plan is they're working towards extending the runway from 4,650 feet to 5,001. So they're looking at a extension of 351 feet. So that's what's been in, I guess, a concern of citizens, as far as, will that bring more traffic and more noise and things like that. So they're open meetings, the citizen participation. So I encourage you, it's the fourth Thursday of the month to go to the meetings, and it's at the airport, and they're going to be talking about, the runway extension and noise and resident concerns and things like that. And there were actually 2 members of the Plymouth Board of Select Board at the last meeting, too, so they're getting involved, too, in some of the discussions.
Do you get many residents? I know a lot of residents reached out to us when the airport was expanding.
There are a lot of residents there, but mostly from Plymouth. I don't really see many from Carver, and there's actually Zoom, so you can participate via Zoom, too, and there's a public comment section, too, so I encourage people to, get to the link, and if they want to participate, and be part of the process, they should try to join and listen in and talk.
Great. And I guess just finally for me, I just want to comment a minute on the new pickleball courts and the beautiful new deck we have behind the Council on Aging. I think a lot of different boards and committees cooperated to make those happen, and they're great new additions to the town. So I hope everybody gets a chance to go down there and take a look and utilize those things, because they're great additions to the town. And I also want to wish everyone a very happy 4th of July. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, Area 58. Have a good week, everybody.